going blank on them, on the,
Sturbridge.
yeah, not the town,
Good, good. I'm relieved.
at the town meeting, okay? There was nothing new that came about. We were just meeting in case there were decisions that had to be made off of town meeting, and there were none. Trails Committee?
That needs to be signed.
Meeting on Thursday of this week.
Okay. We will, we're gonna go to, from this point, we're gonna go to 5-minute, on DOT with Bill to start off?
Yep, we have two things to do quickly. Update from Mass DOT, and then we have a quick tree removal right after that.
Okay. Bill, come on up.
Well, good evening. For the record, Bill Clardy from Mass DOT. With me this evening, I'm sorry, Peter.
Peter Reed from BSC Group.
Okay.
So I guess Rebecca had extended an invitation for us to join the commission this evening. I think we wanted just to kind of briefly bring the commission up to date with regard to our schedule. Rebecca did sent an email. I think the correspondence is between Rebecca and the Cedar Lake Watershed Association. We had asked Rebecca if she would inquire in terms of the status of the proposed seasonal drawdown, which sounds like that will be beginning on November 1st. In this correspondence that we received, it sounds like it takes approximately 3 weeks. I guess they look to draw the pond down or the lake down approximately 36 inches. So what we've done is Peter and myself and Rebecca, we met in the field back the end of October on the 30th. So again, we're trying to, so Peter, I think, is trying to develop a schedule so that he can get out there with his survey crew. And it sounds like that would be the period of time in which Peter would be prepared to start his survey work. And with that, Peter, I'll hand that off to you.
So thanks, Bill. We plan to have our crew out there the week after Thanksgiving when this drawdown is complete, and they will be determining the limits of the fill that has slid from that scour hole into Cedar Pond. And so at that point in time, once we get the survey complete, we can start to work on a Corps of Engineers permit in order to remove the material from the lake.
When you say your crew, how many people does that
It'll
represent?
probably be a two-man crew.
Two-man
And
crew?
I think that what we would like to do is go out there prior to it to determine if we need a boat, just logistics.
Yeah.
There is a fence there.
There
and
is. That's all on state property, so we can remove a portion of it for access purposes.
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't just walk out there. How are you gonna determine what is from recent scarring and what is accumulated from road runoff for the last 20 years?
Well, I was under the impression that this scour hole had slid, and so what I was envisioning is that the bottom of the lake would be a certain shape and plane, and that we would see this pile of material that came like this with a defined toe, and that we would pick up that toe and go from there. There is somewhat, once you get out there and you start to do the work, I won't likely be there. It'll be the crew. And
That actually brings up a good point, Peter. Do we have a bathymetry map available for Cedar Lake?
There is one, DEP.
Yeah, DEP
has one
has it.
available.
Yeah. It's old though, right?
Yeah, it would show, it's probably
But-
30, 5 years old.
Yeah.
But
that was
it'll
what I
be-
was-
Would the association have any information to that?
They would have that, that old,
Yeah, sure.
that old map.
Thanks for going to the mic, Raul.
Raul Ricard, 53 Beach Ave, also a member of the Sea Lake Association. So it was going to be one of my questions is what do you use as a benchmark to determine that it's high or low or how much runoff has gone off? We do have a pretty detailed report dating back to 1983 where LICOT did an extensive study back then. LICOT is now Solitude. Did an extensive study which appears to have depth marks in there and things of that sort. So we'll certainly make that available to you as a benchmark.
Yeah.
Because
No, that's great.
I'm
That
certainly
would be-
concerned about the immediate runoff, but I'm also concerned about the long-term erosion of that area and runoff that has flowed as well. So what the depth of the lake is down there now compared to 1983 might be a good benchmark for you to look at and determine what actually.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Okay.
So would you be giving that to the commission, or?
Yeah, to
Yeah,
back-
I will get a copy to, I have it electronically now. I had to get it copied from the old archives of paper wire bound file, but I have it electronically. I can send that on to Rebecca and she can get it to
Okay.
you as well.
Great,
Great.
Yeah, that'd be very helpful.
thank you.
I just wanted to add too, I did send, as you guys had advised, I sent a letter out summarizing all the actions taken to date. So one other thing that we talked about in the field and that we've brought up too is some of these other drainage structures like the swales. So we just want to make sure those are getting looked at too. Some need to be repaired. I know we talked about those long-term improvements potentially, and you guys had mentioned when we were out there that Mass DOT might have that section of the pike for repaving in 5 years. Did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah,
or-
there's a couple of opportunities. I mean, typically, there was recently a pike job that actually took place in the town of, through the town of Millbury. And I know that we had used that as an opportunity to incorporate some BMPs near a body of water in that town. I'm just using that as an example. But I guess more to the point, you know, some of those improvements that I know the commission would like to see and the association would like to see would be something that would most likely be done on a construction project versus a shorter-term maintenance project, which we're trying to accomplish now. Now, I know, Peter, if I could turn that over to you a little bit, because there is a current project in the town of Sturbridge.
Right.
Yeah, so BSC has been working for Mass DOT on a different project in Sturbridge where at the interchange of 84 and 20 in the infield areas there, we designed a number of BMPs to collect stormwater runoff and treat it before it went
Yep.
into the water bodies. And that project was kind of phased in two different parts. A lot of times, if they can put these improvements into a repaving project, they'll do it that way. This particular one, we had new pipes going underneath the pavement, and so the first project went in and put these little stubs of pipe, did the paving, and then a separate contractor has come back, and I believe he's out there right now
Yep.
doing the work, building all of the things that were beyond the edge of pavement. And the logic was just so that you didn't have to go back and rip up brand-new paving. So that's being done right now, those BMPs. And so I think Bill's point is that these other repair or other improvements that could help Cedar Pond might be done better under a construction project rather than under a maintenance project. Designed, advertised, and
Right, but I think, was it Matt that was out there with us? I think he said that this section of the pike would be repaved within 5 years or so, and that
Yes,
maybe
there
that could
is.
be
There
incorporated.
is. It's as we say, it's actually, there's a 5-year plan. So that section of Sturbridge is within that 5-year plan.
Is that written down somewhere? I didn't mean that facetiously. I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
I mean, it is.
Can we get a copy of the 5-year plan for in and around
I'll
Sturbridge?
see I know that there is information that's available on the public domain that you can access. I'll see how we can communicate that to
Yeah,
you.
I'm looking, just for that section.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if we're gonna piggyback it on something, we'd have to know about when it's coming.
And then too, just like those other swales, there might be some areas that do need maintenance now or repair, before the complete project might happen for those long-term improvements. So there's the
Well, I think once we get out and start with our survey crew out there and spending some time out there, we'll take a look at some of those areas.
okay, so they're gonna look at the paved
We
swales as well?
can, when we're out there, we can look at those areas, you
Okay.
know, we might have, at that time, we've got a crew out there, might, better opportunity just to kind of make an assessment,
Okay.
yeah.
And then, like, on the other side of the pike, too, there was those detention basins.
Yeah, I did actually, Rebecca, I did actually look at that detention basin. And you're correct, there are some trees small trees that have grown in. But they're relatively small, they're not real big caliper, I think they're like 6-8 inch caliper. Right across from the Hamilton
Yep.
Rod and Gun Club. I mean, I don't know if there would necessarily be a benefit for cutting those back.
Well, I don't know if necessarily you're right, cutting them back, but I think maybe just removing the built-up accumulated sediment out of there, and that's something that maybe should get looked at,
Yeah, I
too.
think-
I think if that sediment came out, I don't think if the tree's not hurting anything, it actually could be beneficial to keep it
Right.
there. But I think that the trees are there shows that no one's probably done any maintenance there for a long time, and that was kind of the concern, that maybe it needs to get looked at and see if maintenance needs to be done.
Okay. Anybody else on the board like to speak?
Yeah, there was another study that was done by Gold Environmental. I think they were done for you guys. Probably, let's see, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Time flies. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
They were looking at the impacts.
Specific to Cedar Pond, or?
Yeah, I mean, yes. A guy by the name of Brian Donahue was the fellow that I know that used to work for DEP, and then he went to work for Gold. Might be something to check
Yeah,
out.
if you can, if you find some reference to that
Okay,
information,
right.
you can provide it to Rebecca, and,
Okay, I'll look for that.
yeah.
I have a couple of questions. You indicated that BSC is going to go out with survey team. Has BSC looked at the project before going out with the survey team?
Yeah, I've been to the site twice now, I think. I saw the scour hole, I think that was
That was a-
earlier in October. I went out with Bill and Matt Farren, and then I went back out October 30th, which is what Bill mentioned, with Rebecca, and I saw the repair of the scour hole, and then we went to the top of the slope. We looked at the new improvements to that catch basin and that little basin that catches the water. And then we went and looked at both swales. So,
And has the Department of Transportation been out to view the results of the repair to see how it's working? And do you
Yes.
have any visual proof that it is working and that it hasn't failed in the infrequent rainstorms that we've had in the last month?
Actually, again, we were out there as recently as the 30th with Rebecca.
And no damage? So it is working?
It seems to be working fine, yeah.
I mean, there was a little bit of scour at the end of the riprap, and there was that channel that looked like it was coming out. And when we were out there, we talked about, Mass DOT inspecting that so often and coming up with a plan to address that if it's not functioning
Yeah.
correctly.
Well,
So
the important thing with that little basin and that stone treatment, it's not intended to contain water. It's intended to break the energy and spill over and remove sediment. So, there still will be flow. The intent is not to contain it, but rather to slow the water down, will allow sediment to settle out and then eventually flow down along the side of the side slope.
Did you say that there was additional sediment?
well, you could see where the flow kind of channelized and was coming out underneath the straw bales. So I think because the slope isn't very stable below where the riprap is, it's loose soil and there's like that smaller stone out there. there could be a concern that that area becomes destabilized by the
Was-
flow up on top,
But was there any additional sedimentation that you could discern?
coming out of the little basin structure.
From the area that they supposedly repaired?
Well, there was just, you could see where there was flow coming out. It wasn't, sediment wasn't going further beyond where that flow kind of ended. It's not like sedimentation was going down into the
I'm
resource.
trying to get a handle as to whether the changes that they made actually worked or not. And with all the rain we've had, we certainly can tell if there's additional sedimentation taking place.
Well, the hay bales are still in place. There's straw bales up on top.
But they weren't working when we took pictures of them. They were allowing some sedimentation to seep around and under.
You could see that flow was, and maybe a little bit of sediment was being moved by that flow.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to, if I may, again, as I mentioned early in October, I think the primary reason for the material moving or washing into the lake was because of that corrugated metal pipe had failed. So it was essentially a kind of a direct conduit for the stormwater to get to that scour hole and obviously caused the scour. So again, I think the repair, I think, was really, the most significant part of the repair was to take that damaged drain line offline.
And you had indicated in the past that you didn't think that it was appropriate to provide us with a plan, or without talking about it, you simply have ignored the request that we've made for a plan. Will we be getting an as-built when this project is complete?
Yeah, we're gonna survey that catch basin
Yeah, yeah.
and that dissipation
Right.
bowl.
Yeah, and I also need to respond to that. When I was in, before the commission back in the beginning of October, I tried to emphasize the importance of taking that pipe offline. Now, we only have one drainage contractor, and we actually took him off of another job. We completed that, I think it was a week after our meeting. So we did that pretty expeditiously, but again, I guess to your point is your concern about a plan. These are standard details that our drainage contractor works from. So there's nothing really particularly unique about the repair that we made. But back to Peter's point is, that's something we could pick up, that information during the as-built.
It's just that the standard operating procedure for at least this board is that at the completion of a set of work, especially repair work, we have a plan that indicates what was completed, so that if something goes awry, we know what was done to try to make it work, and we can perhaps fix it or replace it. But if we don't have a plan, we don't know what to fix or replace. We can go out and make all kinds of guesses as to what took place, but it's much better if we actually have a plan that depicts it.
Yeah, well, so we will be, the survey plan will have two functions. It'll be an as-built of the repairs that have been done to date, and it'll also delineate the area of the fill that went into the lake.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, anything down there? All set? Steve?
I'm all set.
Steven? All set? The audience? Anybody in the audience like to speak further on this? So,
Cowards.
Oh, you can get my opinion if you want.
all right, so we've got a number of things that we're going to be looking for and going to be working toward.
Yes.
So you'll be out there the last week in November.
Yep.
And after you do your survey work, you'll be sending us the results of that and a
Yeah, we can send you the
proposal?
plan, once
Okay.
we're
Yeah.
done.
Okay.
Just keep in mind that, there's the field work, then it comes back into the office, then we have to do the office work of drawing it up.
Yeah.
So that would probably be into December by the time we get it drawn.
And it sounds like, Peter, that we should be able to do all that survey, maybe with the exception of having to go in potentially with the boat, but all of the other access, I think, will be on state layout.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know with that fence and then how it
Yeah.
moved. I think that could be
Yeah.
certainly beyond the layout.
Yeah, because I think the fence is the layout.
Okay. David, you had another question?
One more question. Ro, what's the timing on the drawdown? Because the drawdown starts on November 1st, but when you get to 36, you put the dam back up.
Right, the drawdown, again, I'll record from 53 Beach. The drawdown has started. It started on November 1st promptly because we knew we wanted to get it down as quickly as possible. It averages about 2 inches a day going down on average, assuming you don't get a lot more rain. So we just got hit with a ton of rain.
That's a bad assumption.
Well, I mean, you always get some rain in that period of time, but you
Yeah.
haven't. So we don't want to take it down faster because of, you know, the erosion, that kind of stuff, but it is underway. You can see it visibly already on the lake that it's come down. That particular end of the lake is only about a couple of feet deep normally in general. So you've got, you could potentially get out there earlier, but to be safe, absolutely safe, it should be completed hopefully by the week after Thanksgiving. Okay?
Thanks.
I did have one last question if I could.
Sure.
I know that you talked about some potential highway work 5 years from now, and that it might be part of a construction project there. I think that the association would certainly welcome a collaborative plan to get the area corrected, and if that's part of the plan, great. The only thing I'd ask is if we do agree to wait for a later project, that some of the immediate repair areas are at least temporarily fixed up, like the one swell that is really bad on the south side of the lake, and maybe the dragging out of the debris in the retention basins, or some basic, you know, maintenance of that area to at least keep it up until it can be re-engineered and done better. Is that a fair request?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I think once we get out there and start and do our survey, we can maybe make an assessment out there. for those
The other
conditions.
thing, he said he had a 5-year plan. He didn't say that he was going to do it in 5 years. A 5-year plan from every business that I've ever been involved in means it's within the 5 years. Could be next month,
Yeah,
could be,
I've also seen
that was why I asked for a
5-year
copy of
plans
it.
become 10-year
Yeah,
plans,
right.
so
No,
it
that's
makes
true,
sense,
too.
yeah. So, I'm not saying yours would be, but
Yeah,
I want to have some sort of check mark that we know
yeah.
kind of what's
Well,
going to happen. I think you asked for the timing of that in writing. I think that's appropriate at this point, because we may not all be in our roles at that point when that finally gets done. So I just want to make sure we have the facts ahead of us, that's all.
Good.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Nice seeing you.
You're welcome.
Yep. Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Can we still do, so this gentleman doesn't have to wait 81 Shore Road, it's the
Okay.
birch trees. Can we just do that, let a permit real quick?
All right,
That'd
fine.
be very quick.
So that's 81 Shore Road?
Yeah, yeah. Yep, come on up.
Yep, come on up.
Bye. Nice to meet you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Please introduce yourselves to the audience.
My name's Christopher Glubicki, 81 Shore Road.
My name is Michael Glubicki, his dad.
Okay, go ahead. So,
So this is a tree removal permit application for 81 Shore Road. This is, we did a site visit, so we went out there last week. I called him afterwards. So you just want to talk to the commission about what and why you want to remove these?
Sure. I have some other pictures also. I'll pass these up a little closer. Leave it in, leave it in.
I think was everybody at the site?
Yep.
Everyone went to the site and looked at the picture. I looked at the actual
There's some other
trees.
pictures a
Yeah,
little closer
yeah,
from the
yeah.
deck.
Yeah.
We inherited this property about 6 months ago, and there's been a lot going on there. It's been in the family for 30 years, but we've taken over. And if you look at those pictures after, you'll see that really our access to the water is really kind of denied in that particular area. If you're sitting on the deck, you can't see the water very well. The other part of the proposal that we want to do besides removing this, and I didn't think we had to put this in the plan, is cut back some of the trees. There's some dead branches above. In fact, there's a big one that's right over the cottage. And that was something we wanted to do. There's a tree, I think it's called a miniature pear tree that's over on the right side that is way overgrown, and it's causing a lot of stainage and issues with the cottage. We have squirrel issues. I went around the corner the other day, there was 5 squirrels in a tree. I found out that nobody people can't eat these pears, but I guess squirrels like them. We've had squirrels enter into the house. One of them actually electrocuted himself, and that ended up costing a lot of money. So it's been a lot going on with the cottage. So what we're trying to do is just kind of get it back and get it away from some of the bushes, trim them back a little bit, and try to enjoy the property and see the lake, and get access to the water. The other thing is, because of all the vegetation that's around the house, we've had mildew and mold issues in the cellar that we had to remediate. And I think it's a direct issue of not having enough sunlight on the building. So we just want to trim it back a little bit and remove those two particular, that clump of arborvitaes and that clump of birch. And the person who gave us the estimate said he said make sure that he's not gonna rip anything up. He's gonna cut it flush to the ground and not rip up any root systems, just to so we can access that. That's our access to the water right there.
All right. Becky? Any comments?
One thing you mentioned, maybe the larger birch there was like just cutting the one limb that was coming over the deck, or?
Well, right in that corner right there, that's where we put our summer table, where we have cookouts and things like that. And that other picture that you saw where the mess is over in that corner, that's the pear tree. And so either you have to move the table over, or you couldn't access it, because that's without leaves right now.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of just gotten overgrown. Like I said, the people, family members, and they rented it, whatever, nobody did any maintenance. And then we're basically try to catch up after 30 years and try to get it to the point where it's more habitable, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really think there's really any concerns with the arborvitaes, the birch clumps. If you could just limb them, if they're not, the whole, especially this one, if it's not an issue. I mean, they are small in scale. Maybe there are opportunities over here to plant for removal, but there does appear to be some adequate vegetation on the other side. I don't think there's a lot of concerns with the removal of the small clumps, but.
Paul, anything? No. Steve?
Yeah, I certainly can see taking those arborvitae out of there and maybe planting some sort of a bird-friendly shrub in there. Yeah, I mean, the pear tree, I didn't really pay any attention to that pear tree when I
It
was out there.
wasn't on the request when we went out.
Right, I hadn't seen that.
We weren't gonna remove that, we're just gonna maybe trim it back a little bit. I didn't know if you had to, just like dead branches, I thought that was, you could do that, especially if it's a hazard to the house, like there's one that's hanging over the bedroom.
Yeah, dead branches, pruning,
Yeah,
generally speaking, we don't have any problem with at all. Okay.
and I could see pruning that larger tree. I don't know that I would want to see that taken out of there myself. I mean, I don't see moving the table as a huge deal, and the tree does provide benefit, as we all know, shading to the water and so on, but, certainly something to consider.
You want me to go? I agree, actually, with everything that Steve just said. I have no problem with the arborvitaes. I have no problem with trimming the pear. But I would like to see those birch stay, because those are exactly the kind of trees that we're trying to preserve along the lakefront. The one that's hanging over the deck, if you want to trim that, I don't have a problem with that. But
So the rightmost
Right.
branch of that
This
right
one
clump.
right here.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean, that one almost comes halfway on for the length of the deck across.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. So I could see, if you want to trim that, I don't have a problem with that. But I would like to see the other birch stay there, because it is providing benefit. I think, I don't know if you mentioned, or maybe it was Becky, if you were to plant something, if you were to plant a tree down here that you could eventually replace this with, but I want to see this come out immediately. I'd want to see something get established and, be similar in size to this before I would agree to removing a perfectly healthy birch.
Do you have permission, is that talking about cutting it at the base and then planting right next to it, or pulling the root system out?
No, you
Pulling
don't,
the
we do
roots.
not pull, yeah, no,
Okay,
we
all
don't
right.
pull the
No,
stumps.
I didn't think so, I thought that would be the less.
But I'm saying you don't touch it until you have something else that's established and,
Well, what
yeah.
you're saying is we wouldn't approve it now.
I would not approve it now, yeah, exactly.
So, you know, and I mentioned a bush there, but, yeah, I mean, you're right, I mean, a tree would be better.
Yeah, I
If
mean,
you're-
the birch is perfect.
If you're
so,
thinking about taking that birch out of there.
Yeah,
What would really be perfect if the birch was a lot smaller, in our particular case, but somebody just neglected it over the years, and now we've got something here that's basically, you know, it's in our plates, so to speak, with the leaves. I mean, it's shade, but there is something really important with the mold that we had down in the basement. I mean, it's a lot of overgrowth, it's a conduit for insects. When you get all that stuff, it's just like, it's gotten wild, it's almost like a jungle. And it's gotta be kind of trimmed back, and like I said, I know that's not part of the purview, it's all right to trim back, but, so what you're saying is if we planted something smaller next to it, we could cut the other one down, is that what you're saying?
eventually, it was,
No, he didn't say that. What he said that if you planted something next to it and it grew up to the equal size, then you could cut it down.
exactly, that's what I said.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just step in here. First of all, you can make it to the lake without, with the trees there. They're not blocking you from getting to the lake. I mean, just, and what we're dealing here with is what we call vista pruning. Anyone around the lake that wants to see the lake wants to cut down everything in front of their house so they can see the lake. And the problem with that is it's damaging to the lake. So we try to keep, within the first 25 feet, we try to keep what we call a no-touch zone, which we keep the trees that are there. Those clumps of birch are ideal. They hang out over the water. They provide insects. They provide, yes, there is wildlife involved with them. And squirrels, you know, we can't help you with your squirrel problem, but we all have one of our own. But, so my point is that, from my point of view, I could see removing the arborvitaes, and pruning the other trees, but not cutting them down. And, you know, basically the birch will show you in the spring what's dead on it. It'll be very clear, the branches that are dead, and you can clean them right off. They usually die up. So that would be my position on it. I don't know about the rest of you.
Also, Mr. Haltman indicated that if the arborvitae gets cut down, there should be some berry-bearing bushes.
Yep.
Yeah, I said a bush, berry
Yeah.
bearing, Stephen said another tree, so.
Oh, you
that's-
wanted the tree where the birches are.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
All right, so that's,
okay.
so it sounds like we're in agreement what
Yep.
we will allow, okay? So I'm summarizing to you, the birches stay, the pear stays. You can, anything that's dead on them, you can certainly prune off. If you want to give us an example of a plant that you want to put in and replace the arborvitaes, then we would be going along with cutting those down.
And also that large limb that's hanging out over the
Yeah.
dump, we said they could
The
cut
birch.
that out.
Shape that tree back.
There was another
Yeah.
oak limb, a large oak on
There's
the
a-
side
yeah,
that's
there's a
dead?
couple-
Okay.
yeah, and there's one on the driveway coming in that's really dead, he was just gonna lop that off, but I didn't think that would be an issue, that could fall on someone passing by.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just want to make sure that
It's
it's
dead,
included,
yeah.
so.
Right.
So what we would do is issue a letter response giving approval for the trimming that we just discussed. And if you want to move forward with the arborvitae, you can, but maybe
Okay.
supplement a bush that could be moved over on the shore for a replacement. But you could take, I think it was 8 arborvitaes, take them out for one, like a berry-bearing bush over there. Is that what you're thinking? Which could be over to the side, so it's not right where they are
Not
either,
right
so.
on, yeah, okay.
Yeah, like over
Yeah, yeah.
here was kind of
Yeah,
open,
that-
it wouldn't,
I think
you
that
know.
it's less impeding of
Yeah.
enjoying.
And it won't grow up and become a visual hazard for you guys.
All right, so do we have consensus
I think
with the
so.
board?
Just had a quick question, if
Go
I
ahead.
may. So you said that the birches, they provide shade to the lake. I mean, I think there's a considerable distance between at least the rightmost cluster and the lake. Is there just a, did you say 25 feet from the lake? You kind of keep your eye
We have a
on it?
no-touch zone in the
Oh, no touch
25
zone
feet.
between-
There,
within
we try
25
to,
feet.
within the 100 feet, we try to keep
Oh, I
as many
see.
trees as possible,
Okay.
so. And they're well within that,
Yeah, yep, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
yeah.
All right.
So, all in favor? Letter permit? Thank you. All right, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll get you a letter permit.
I'm going to read the opening.
Yeah.
In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body,
Thank you. Yeah.
or resource area, and/or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to opening the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. These items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any of the visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a notice of intent, DEP number 300-TBD, to be determined, 118 to 124 Lead Mine Road installation and relocation of utility poles, represented by BSC Group, Inc., for the applicant Mass Electric, National Grid. How you doing?
Who do I give the?
I'll take it,
Okay,
yep.
so here's the legal and tear sheet.
Yep, and I have the green cards. They got sent to us.
Oh.
Yes,
yeah.
so we have them.
I tracked
Forgot I
every
had 'em.
single one, because I didn't get any of them back. Okay, so you have them.
Yes, yep, they sent them to us. I'm like, why are we getting these? And I'm
I
like,
feel
oh,
like
then I
there-
figured it
there
out.
was
They're all
something
like
that
lead mine,
said
yeah.
that. Okay, so. you
All
need
right,
that one?
thank you.
You don't need these then.
I'll
I
take
have one
this
for the
one.
DEP.
Yeah, I'll take that. That's fine. I think that's sufficient. And then, did you receive the DP file number from?
I wrote it down on the envelope for the ad and then I threw it away, but we do have the full DEP number. It was issued.
It was.
Okay,
yeah.
they didn't give it to me.
If you, I don't know if you wanted, there's a DEP lookup and you can just go and grab it from.
Okay, I'll do that because then that'll give us the.
Yeah, I'm sorry
sufficient.
about that.
No, that's okay. Usually they copy me on the email, and I just didn't.
Yeah, that's strange that they didn't.
Did DEP make any comments?
I did not see any.
All right, please introduce yourself and.
My name is Corey Schutzman. I'm with BSC Group here on behalf of Mass Electric Company.
Yeah, National Grid. All right,
So this project is the relocation of some utility poles along the road in the road around the Lead Mine Lane community. They fall within, two of them are within the Riverfront area, and two of them are within all of the buffer zones. I thought that should I bring my board up?
1025.
You guys are
1025.
technologically advanced here with having it on the screen, or should I bring the board up?
I think we can do it from the screen unless you
Okay.
feel more
Yeah.
comfortable with the board.
Nope.
So, all right, we do have it.
It's a
which is
nice
great.
board, by the way.
Thank
Yes.
you.
no,
There's many things pinned to that board.
no
Well done.
comments. No comments.
No
from them,
comments,
so.
okay.
I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Good.
So I might just read this because I want to keep it straight for you guys. Get there. There's 4 utility poles that are being removed or installed. The relocation of P33 and P34. There's a push brace for P33 and an anchor for P34. P32-1 and its anchor, and the installation of P33-50 and that anchor. P34 and 33-50 are within the 100-foot buffer zone to BVW, and the 200-foot riverfront area. P32-1 is within a 100-foot buffer zone, and all of the pole locations are within your locally regulated 200-foot resource protection zone, the 50-foot no-build zone, and the 25-foot no-disturb zone. Oh, no, I'm sorry, just P33 and 50 and 34 are within the 25-foot no disturb zone. Normally, these activities would be exempt under maintenance, the maintenance exemption in the Wetland Protection Act, but relocating the line closer to the road actually is gonna involve some tree trimming and takedowns within the riverfront area, and that was the trigger for the notice of intent. These poles have been identified as, they're old wooden poles. They haven't been maintained in a long time. The maintenance of them in their current location would require more tree trimming and takedowns than moving them closer to the road where they're more accessible to maintenance equipment and construction equipment, and replacing them with obviously new equipment that will be maintained regularly. Unfortunately, it does include some tree pruning and some takedowns to install the equipment, and then, of course, it would be maintained as an easement with the regular tree trimming to keep the branches off the lines.
Okay. Becky?
We did a site visit out there last week, kind of walked the area, saw where the stakes were. I don't anticipate any concerns with that. I think it's actually gonna probably result in improvement with moving some of those poles out or
Right.
out of the buffer zone or close proximity to the resource areas.
Or in the resource
Or
area.
in the resource area, right, right.
The removal of one pole from a
Yeah.
wetland is a
Yeah.
benefit of this project. I
And
forgot
it's
to mention
only,
that.
and it's only, I think like a little over 3,000 square feet of riverfront impact, and that's mostly with just the tree
It's
limbing, et cetera.
exactly, and it's not ground disturbance.
Yep.
Obviously, we're not gonna remove any stumps, so we're calling it canopy disturbance.
Right, right.
Do you
So,
remove the old poles?
They would normally remove the old poles if they're in a location that it's necessary. In a place that is a sensitive area, they'll normally just cut down and leave the stub if it's gonna be, if it's not gonna be a hazard to people and it's going to impact the wetland or the buffer zone more, and we'd wanna limit the disturbance, and we can
Okay.
just leave the stub.
Yeah.
I don't have any major concerns. I guess just thinking about when we get to conditioning, it's just maybe having them flag the trees that need to get removed, and we would do like with our pre-construction meeting, just identify those and make sure that, only necessary things are taken out, so.
Absolutely.
All right. Anybody in the audience like to speak on this? Go ahead. Yeah. Either way, whatever.
Rob Cerny, 124 Leadmine Lane. I met with Stephen, somebody, I forgot his last name.
Stephen Susi, he's the National Grid engineer, so I know he was doing some coordination directly with the homeowners about where poles were, and there were some adjustments that needed to be made within just a couple of feet of where they were going to be. So it doesn't look to me, from my discussion with Stephen, that that would impact any of the buffer zones and definitely not any resource areas any more than what's on this. All of the alignments remain the same, but we're trying to address the homeowner concerns.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we were talking about today with Stephen, the alignment is the same. It just moves one of the poles. It's gonna be,
Is it 32?
yeah,
This
32,
one?
1. It's gonna move
Over here?
15, yep, 32, 1.
Yeah.
It's gonna move 15 feet in this direction.
So it's
In
moving
this
out, it's
direction.
gonna probably move it out of that,
Okay.
I can't read what the yellow one is right now.
It may be a couple more feet, further from the resource area.
Right.
Just gonna make it a little bit more convenient for, so I don't wind up hitting any poles with my truck, because I will do that. I guarantee you.
You don't want that. It's supposed to be an improvement project,
Yeah,
so.
that was really the only change that we came up with today. But
Yep.
In regards to that change, there's an oak tree shaped like a V, I don't know what the technical term is for that.
Forked tree.
Double lead,
Yeah.
Double what?
a double lead.
A double lead.
Okay.
Well,
Wow.
the little lead, which is if you're standing at the top of the driveway looking down, it would be on the north side. That lead is gonna have to be removed to give the proper clearance from the new pole going in to the house without it hitting a tree.
Yep,
And I don't know if it has to be removed, but we were talking about it, and it would either be removed or there would be some sort of bracing put in on it to bring the line further out. I don't know
right.
exactly on that.
And again, that is kind of included in our estimate of tree trimming anyway, and that would be within the maintenance of the line as it is. And in my opinion, as an environmental biologist, removing one of the leads from a double lead tree makes it safer and healthier. So I would say that that's not a terrible thing to do. We're still leaving most of the tree there.
That's all it is.
Okay.
Would we receive a revised plan kind of showing the location of the new pole? I know it's not far from it, but
I mean, I can certainly do that. It's not, at this scale, it's not gonna look like much. It's 15 feet. So I can certainly give you a new plan where we just move that one pole location 15 feet to the east.
do you want a new one or no? Just write it in there, write it in.
Just write it in there, it's fine. with me.
Okay.
Okay.
One question. Are the poles gonna be the same height once installed?
They should be, yes.
No, that's not a good answer. We need a yes or a no answer.
Yes, they will be the same height.
Because we were told the same thing on Martha's Vineyard, and the damn poles are 15 feet taller than the previous ones. And it was your company.
It was BSC Group?
No, it wasn't BSC
It
Group,
was National Grid.
National Grid.
I can confirm that they will be the same height, if
Okay,
you would like
thank
me
you.
to do that.
Okay.
I am under the impression that they are the same height. They're called in-kind, so they should be the same height and the same footprint.
I didn't mean to be rude, but
No, I
it
totally
has to be
understand.
either yes or no. It can't be, I suspect, or maybe.
Honestly, from listening to you in the previous one, I should have known that was gonna be an
Okay.
inadequate answer.
Well, at
All
least I'm
right.
consistent.
Do I have a motion
to?
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? All right, do I have a motion to approve the project?
So move.
Second.
Second? Well, discussion?
We should also indicate in the order of conditions that we have not requested a new print. That we've not suggested that we get
Yeah.
a print that has the
Okay, yeah,
actual-
we're just
She's
gonna
gonna-
add in the
yeah.
revision for the,
15 feet.
yeah.
All right. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Notice intent,
Thanks,
DEP.
Ron.
Yeah, yeah.
Aye.
Notice of intent, DEP number 300-1026, 114 Lane 10, single-family house addition and proposed stairs to the lake.
Bob Murphy, representing Julie Zuidema. This is a copy of the
Thank you.
ad, and the little ad, this is the different slips.
Yep, thank you.
And I have,
Is that the revised plan?
probably on PDF, but I have hard copies as well.
Perfect. Yep, we'll take those. Thank you.
I sent you a copy of this, you probably have it on your screen, but that's a.
Yes, yeah, I do, but yeah, we can pass it down. Thank you.
You might have to repeat your introduction into the microphone, just
Yep.
for the,
Yeah, it was a little bit garbled because the people out in the hallway were making,
Making excessive noise. We'll have to ask them all to quiet down.
we sent Ashley out to do the dirty work.
Again, my name is Robert Murphy with Murphy Associates, Environmental Consultants, and I am here tonight representing Julie Zuidema, 114 Lane 10. Her application to add an addition to an existing home with a deck, and that is within the 200-foot buffer zone. The,
Hold on. Trying to-
actually went the other way, yeah.
There we go.
All right.
You could see the existing house.
You have a pointer up
center-
there too, so you know.
Oh, really? Is that what this is?
Yep.
Oh. Okay, right there, existing house and proposed addition here. The 100-foot buffer zone is here, and that the lake is up there. So we're about halfway between the 100 and 200-foot buffer zone with the house and the deck. There's no real grading to be done on the lot. We went to the Zoning Board of Appeals and we received a special permit and a reduction in the side yard setback right here. And that was given to us because of the topography over in this area is quite steep. And there's a driveway and stone walls and retaining walls to hold all that up, but it's very steep in that area, so we extended the house straight out. I had 2 cups of coffee today, and I can see this thing is jumping around. Both hands. Anyway, that is the work in the, like I say, about 150 feet away from the water. We also have, as you see, this is priority habitat. We received a letter from the Natural Heritage. They don't tell you what the habitat is, but I believe it's probably turtles, because it wouldn't
It's a
surprise
plant,
me.
actually.
Is that a plant?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, well that, but because- that's okay.
dwarf something, yeah.
We're not supposed to tell after.
The only thing that's important is that it's habitat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's habitat, and it was considered to be,
Phragmites.
that this project would not have, a take, as
Yep.
they call it.
Yep.
And so we're all set there. We have a DEP file number, as you mentioned earlier. What we're also asking to do, right now, there's a right-of-way that goes right down through here to the water. And they've been using that for several years. They had a walkway before in the area basically where we're proposing it right now. There was a walkway there. It was wood and it rotted. And it's pieces of it are down along the edge of the water. But it's just basically not there anymore. But the problem is that they're walking down through here, and it's just a trail. It's very steep, but it also causes erosion over time because you slide. I mean, you don't walk down this thing; you slide down this hill. It's very steep. So what they're asking to do this work with the deck in the 100-foot buffer zone, and the reason we revised the plan, there was a request to limit the cutting of trees. If you look right there, there's a black birch, it's about 22 inches at the base, and at diameter breast height is 18 inches, which is what the foresters use. But it's a substantial tree. And we found that by moving over 4 feet, because the walk was going right through the middle of that tree, we moved it over 4 feet. We're within the property line. The property line is right there. And now we have a couple of trees. They're like 2 inches. I think there was one 3 inches.
Do you have
These
it with the
trees
photos?
here
That's
are
the
quite
picture.
thin. Yeah, if you want to go to if you have the picture,
Yeah.
you could go to it.
So that's
the-
the property line right here.
This is a property marker,
Path.
and there's a mark on that tree. That's the line. The property line is right there. So all these trees are right on line. They're not a problem. This tree here is about 2 inches. This is 3 or 4 inches. This is actually 2 trees right there, 4 and a 2 inch. And this tree looks huge here because it's right in front of the camera. But this tree here is about a 8-inch black birch. And part of the root, you can't see it so much here, but it's eroded on the back side, and the roots here are exposed. So the tree itself is that's the only tree larger than 6 inches that we would need to take down. In the letter, the most recent letter, the applicant asked me if they would be able to take that tree down right there. That tree is uprooted on this side. If you look right there, these are the roots of the tree. It's all uprooted, and it's in wet sand. It's not in the wetland, but it's pretty wet. But the problem is it's leaning this way, and there's a house. If you look, we could go back to the plan now. I think the house is, I'm pretty sure the house is on there. That tree is right here, and it's leaning right at this house. So the Mrs. Ilchuk, I met her this summer. She asked me if we might be able to request to have that tree removed because it's going to fall down. I mean, only a matter of time before it comes down. And they could even plant another black birch or similar tree that would grow in that area. All the other trees, all these trees here, they're hemlocks. That tree here that we want to save, that's a black birch. And the whole area is pretty well forested with hemlocks, so we don't think that it would be a major impact to that area. But again, I think what we could easily do here would be to plant trees that do well in this area on a slope,
and the shrubs. Right in this area, we call it brush, there's a couple of mountain laurels in that area that would come out, right in that area, but there's quite a few on that slope. I think mountain laurels would be nice to add in, more so than trees, because it's extremely shaded by the hemlocks. So you see the small 3-inch trees and everything, they're stunted because they just came in a little late to the scene. The healthier trees are, the taller ones are much healthier, but everything on the bottom is stunted. But the mountain laurel do very well in the shade.
Testing.
Well, it's a good thing I brought the hard
lost my,
copies.
Well, that's it. It was a nice night.
What happens if you press one of the
So we have
buttons
to
on
leave.
the?
I
Proj-
tried.
The projector control. Does that help?
Light's still on.
Function is not available.
Function is not available.
But basically, from the plan that I had showed you in the screen without the visual, I basically tell you that at 150 feet away, we're proposing to add an addition to an existing house. It's a log-type house. Foundation would be poured concrete, minimum depth. That would follow all the building codes. The details on the plan, which you have, those are hard copies of the plan. Basically, what we're proposing to do is about every 8 feet, put in a sonotube, and that just gets drilled in straight down. No need for a machine or anything like that. Just hand, auger, and goes down 4.5 feet to get below the frost level, and then on top of that, you have an angle iron that's set into the concrete. It's bolted. When the concrete is wet, you put bolts in it and just sit it on top. And your 6x6 posts sit right on those sonotubes. So all of the pervious surface for whatever vegetation you have there, like I say, it's very shaded with heavy pine needles. That all remains. The stairway is basically a raised stairway that sits on sonotubes. And every 8 feet, you'll have a pair of sonotubes going down the stairway. So everything is raised, and you don't lose any pervious surfaces for drainage, that type of thing. The positive aspect of it is that now you're not sliding down the hill and causing erosion and destabilizing the area. If you go there, you know what I mean. It's just
We were there.
We
Yeah.
were there, we did
No.
not want to walk down.
you have to
that.
be careful when
Some
you're
of
going
us
down.
did not.
Yeah,
Any of
you have to be careful. It's actually easier going up than it is down. I slid down. It was a lot easier for me to get back up. And there is a right of way there. I can't imagine anybody driving down that right of way, but there is a right of way there to have access to the pond. But that's just used for walking.
I don't know what's going on with that thing.
Yeah, sometimes if you unplug the whole system and replug it in,
I just did that.
It boots
And then
up.
I shut it off and tried to turn it back on too, so. But the light was still on there, so.
Nope.
That's all right, we can keep. moving
But anyway,
forward.
you got to see the picture. I think we sent back and forth.
yeah.
What we did was we painted orange striping on the trees, and like I say, the majority of the trees that are to be removed, there's about 6 trees, and 4 of them are less than 3 inches in diameter. They're just sticks, and like I say, they're stunted.
Here we go.
I like the equation
Please
that you
clean
made.
filter.
The 16-inch DBH
Yeah.
is staying, and a number of others that don't come close to 16 and are being shaded out by the canopy
Right.
are being lost. That's terrific.
Yeah,
I
that's
like the trade-off.
Yeah, that's basically what happens. And if you look at the area, there's quite a few that have died, that were dead, that they took out just because
They can't make it because of the competition.
yeah, if you're a slow grower or you come in late, and with trees, it doesn't work. Mother Nature takes over. But the idea here is that by moving it over 4 feet from the original plan, it was actually, when I went out there to take the picture, I was quite pleased to see that there was a whole area where there was very small trees, and I could still go straight down the way I have it. If you look at the 2/3 of the way down, there's a deck. That's really kind of a resting place for people that are going to be walking up these stairs. And it also allowed us to make a turn in an area where the original stairway was located. And if you look at the grading, the way it cuts in there, it almost looks like it was excavated at one time by someone for some reason, because it was scooped, that area was scooped out.
All right, Beck, anything on this?
I guess I just have one question. So the right-of-way where the path is, can that not be used for the stairs?
No, the right-of-way is on the other property.
And it's just for, it's not a right-of-way to construct stairs or anything?
Oh,
it's
no, in
just they
fact, the
can walk
right-of-way
on it?
specifically says there will be no structures on it.
Okay, okay. No, I just wanted to clarify, because if you put it
Yeah.
there, then you could avoid anything. But if it's not allowed, then it seems like this probably makes the most sense for the stairway. Actually, by putting a stairway in, it's going to reduce that potential erosion on the slope there. I missed part of it because I was trying to fix this, but
There
the
are
addition
trees
of
in the
some
right-of-way,
shrubs-
too. I don't show them because I'm not taking them down,
Oh,
but
okay, yeah.
there's trees in that right-of-way.
The addition of the shrubs sounds like a great idea, versus more trees. So if there was like a proposed mitigation plan that was submitted afterwards that incorporated some shrubs to the commission's liking, I think that could compensate for the loss
But
of those.
like I say, in this type of area with that soil, it's very acidic because of the hemlocks. They've
Mm-hmm.
been there for 100 years.
Yeah,
And the mountain laurel like shade and they like acidic soil.
right, that would probably be a good,
So they
Good
would,
shrub.
and
No,
I
sir.
would almost recommend it because there are a couple of areas there where they have been, using it, walking down, sliding down, whatever.
Yeah.
And the mountain laurel will tend to,
Paul, you got anything?
No, I think it's a real good plan, because you can't go down that thing safely.
Okay. Steve? Steve, you have anything?
a good plan, I'm
I mean, I think it's very cleverly done.
Mr. Barnacle? Yep.
Just one quick question. There's a tree right about here.
yeah.
I'm assuming that that's coming down.
Yeah, there's two trees in the house area that have to come down, and those are both black birch. One of them is half dead now, the one that's in the area where the house is.
Okay.
But you have, I mean, this is basically a forested area here.
Right.
where it
No, that's
is-
good.
yeah.
I just wanted,
And
no, I'm good.
the questions I have, with the construction of the house, what type of a foundation are you putting under the house?
Concrete,
Concrete?
yeah,
Wood?
concrete.
Will it be a crawl space?
There'll be a crawl space beneath it, yes.
What's the plan as far as excavation is concerned? Are you gonna go from the backhoe to the truck, or are you gonna stockpile, or what are you doing?
No, if you look at the right-hand side of the property, there's a right-of-way that is on this lot that goes down. The neighbor, Mrs. Ilchuk, uses it.
the driveway there.
Yeah.
We walk down there.
Get
yeah.
down
Yeah.
there. You can drive a truck down there.
Right.
And the idea is to have, there's really no place to do any stockpiling, and there's not a lot of excavation required here. It's just, pretty much just the foundation.
It always turns out to be a heck of a lot more than
Well,
you plan
I
on
would,
when you
I would
start.
agree with that, but the
So
idea here
you're gonna
is
put it
this-
in the truck?
Yeah, this would be where they use a mini excavator. It's
Yeah,
on a track,
Yep.
and it would go into a truck. If they wanted to take it out, it would go into a truck and come down that right away. They could go down there.
So there won't be any stockpiling on the ground?
No, there's really no need to
Okay.
stockpile.
The other question that I had, what's the size of the landing that you're putting in, or the deck you're calling it?
Yeah, it's 4 feet, it's 4 feet, well, the deck is a level area in the steps, but if you look at the scale, the walkway is 4 feet wide, the deck is 4 feet wide, and then the turn, it's 9 feet by 4 feet.
So you got 9 feet by 4 foot deck,
Right.
right there.
It's a leveling area, and then it goes back down the steps.
Okay.
You never want to, if someone were by chance to fall, you don't want them going the whole way down. So you have a deck in the halfway area. That's where they end up.
All right, anybody in the audience? Do I have a motion?
Move to close the public hearing. Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Move that we pass the plan, including the moderate changes that Becky has made. We should make note of the fact that the staircase structure is going to be supported by lolly columns every 8 feet, because that's not clearly indicated on the plan.
Yeah.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Yes, it is. Move
is.
Move it around. Oh, yeah, there's a.
Yeah, there's a
I went to a
detail.
lot of, there's a very nice detail over on the right-hand side.
I missed it, sorry.
Well, I had a zoom in
Deck and
there.
stair
There we go.
footing.
There we go, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah,
Good.
and you could see it's raised, the concrete is raised, so the wood is never in touch with the ground.
Yep.
And
We've
there's-
seen these before, they work quite nicely.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, because you could set, you have to survey these,
The public meeting's closed.
okay, well,
So
just,
So.
adding that.
Yes, yeah, no. So we've got to go.
I stand corrected.
What? Okay.
Do you wanna decide what you'd like for amount of shrubs? We could receive a proposal that could be included in our orders and conditions, separate from the plan that just talks about what you'd like for the shrub replacement.
Miscellaneous mountain laurel?
Sure.
I mean, it is seriously full of trees now.
That's fine with me. I just wanna make sure it's clear so he knows what you're looking for.
It'll help with, preventing erosion and stuff to
Yep.
have additional, so,
Right.
yeah. I'm all
I have
for
no
it.
problem with having a
Yeah.
condition that we show on a plan some shrubs.
All right.
Well, we could
Okay.
even
Okay.
just do a proposal that's
Yeah.
included as a document with the orders of conditions. We can work together on that.
Okay.
Do you have a density, 10?
No, because part of the deal is it will prevent some amount of foot traffic, and at the same time, it will prevent some amount of erosion. And you know doggone right well, as soon as you plant mountain laurel, that's gonna spread.
Yeah.
That's one of the beauties.
Okay. So have Bob think about what
Yeah,
he'd like
Yeah.
to see there, and then we can.
it should really be at your discretion based upon the canopy. Because even though it's shade tolerant, it's not dark tolerant.
No, I agree with you. But the applicant has expressed a desire to put some shrubs on there because the slope is bare. They'd
Right.
like to see mountain laurel, so
All right, I'm going to bring this to a close. Anything else you'd like to see on the, all in favor? All right, so we have 5.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Yep.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, we're now, request for determination of applicability, 19 Woodside Circle. We don't have it. Single-family home, represented by Lenny Jalbert.
He won't let you out of it.
Yeah. Okay.
What I wanted her is to sit here so she can collect all the heat and I'll be all set.
Such an onerous project.
It's a nice plan, Lynn, but it won't work, but.
Actually, it's pretty good that she's here because she can translate for what you tell us.
Yeah, right. Oh, don't give it. You did have a few bad moments.
Challenge Engineering, representing the property for Lorraine Herbert. It's located at 19 Woodside Circle. Before we proceed, I'd like to give you a copy of the certificate of mailing of the abutters and the legal notice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what we're actually doing here is we're putting on a addition in the back of the house. It's 3 foot 5 inches this way, and it's 19 foot 6 inches that way. And it's going from the back of the house along there into the kitchen area, which is the first floor area of the house, to accommodate the utility function of the kitchen, and that's all it is. So the only thing it's going to be is the 3.5 foot strip coming out of here, 19. The cellar area will be extended out to this portion right here. It'll go up to the first floor for the kitchen, and then above that would be the dormer on the house on that side. So that it's not going 2 stories, it's only a single-story thing. The actual work that has taken place here from this area here to that area is in a brick patio. It's not an area that's virgin by any means. It's been pre-developed. It's completely developed in this area. There's a walkway here going out to the garage, and this deck area here is completely covered with stone. What we've done is that, should I say, what they have done is they've taken the drip edge of the house along this side and this side, made drip strips on the back, and discontinued the downspout and gutters in the place for a direct discharge from here to the area here, which is a runoff area on this side. Presently, when you are at the site, this pipe here is in now, but once construction starts, it will be removed, so there's no discharge from the house other than going directly into the ground around the house itself. The area here will include no amenity utility improvements. The well is located right here in the front of the house at this point, which is it's serviced by town sewer and town water too. Both town utilities are on the property itself. So there's nothing going to be done on the site. The driveway is paved here. Nothing will be done there. The only thing that will be disturbed is roughly 3.5 by 19 here, which would be roughly 60 square feet. Any excavation in here will be done with a small backhoe coming in here on tracks, which is like similar to SOPA construction, which they have the small machine that will be coming along the side of the house, along this area here, back up here to dig this out, and then it'll be loaded directly into a truck on the site here and taken off. So there'll be no stockpile of material, there'll be no change in grades, there'll be no utility work on the property other than the locating of the new footing right here at this area here. The stairs themselves will be staying basically where they are. They will be altered altered right here near the area here where there's a dormer section in the window here. It'll be moved forward here into the end of the deck, and the stairs will be coming out this way. So the stairs themselves, as the placement is from here to here, would not change. The area that's grassed on this side over here, adjacent to the wetlands over here, will not be moved. And the only thing is the stairs will be relocated and adjusted from there to there up under the deck. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Becky?
Great. So, like I said, it's a small project. I think it meets DEP's provisions that it can move forward through the request for termination process with the issuance of termination applicability. No major concerns. I'm happy to see that you're going to take the pipe out. That was one of the things we had talked about it before, to have that removed. I was going to suggest that. I think it's mostly just looking at, conditions during construction while they're doing the work, make sure they don't have any impacts, and that's something that we can condition.
Okay. Paul?
No, I don't see any problems with this. We went out there and it looks like basically a fairly small project that doesn't seem to have any real impact on anything.
Steve?
I agree. I'm
David?
fine with it.
I'd like to move that we close the public hearing.
Well, let's wait until, get everybody.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that I want to make sure, when they're moving equipment around, that there isn't any impact. So
No,
exactly what Becky
No,
said. So-
Yeah.
no, there's no impact. The machine right here on this side of the house, there's plenty of room for that little track machine to go through here without any disturbance of anything.
Would they put like plywood down on the grass so they're not ripping it up, or?
They're rubber tracked anyway.
Oh, the rubber track, okay.
So,
And I do appreciate the removal of the gutters. That's great. That was a great improvement.
All right, David, go ahead.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Well, wait a minute, before you do that, anybody in the audience like to speak? Okay, go ahead. Close the public hearing again.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second, all right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Next, I'd like to move that we issue a negative determination under the Mass Wetland Protection Act.
So negative number three.
Three.
With conditions for the Wetlands Protection Act, positive, 2B and 5. 2B is just
Yeah.
that we're not verifying resource area delineation, and 5 is that it's subject to the local bylaws.
Great.
So move.
Any, I have a second on that? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
All set.
All right, can you guys sign this, please?
Nicely done, Lenny. And this,
Yeah. Usually when Lenny says basically there's no change, we start to shake.
There's no changes here.
Yeah.
yeah, right. No, it's a nice project.
Yeah, that's
All right, we're at 7:15. All right, we are now at 7 o'clock. Abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. DEP file number 300-1027, continued from 1016. Route 15, confirming the extent of wetland resources represented by WDA Design Group for applicant Silvertree Realty, Inc. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Good, you?
Good. Yeah.
I'm Brian Waterman, the wetland specialist.
Brian?
I was unavailable to attend the last meeting. And I was continued to tonight, mainly to wait for DEP had some comments. I requested additional information prior to issuing a file number.
Sure.
Since that time, we revisited the site and, is this the laser pointer? Yep. One of the main concerns was the mean annual high water for this section of perennial stream. The stream is mapped as perennial on the USGS map. When we initially delineated this in September of 2017, there was no flow. We took photos. Unfortunately, work on the project kind of stopped, and we didn't get the other 3 days of photos. And then given the rainfall we've had this year, it's been flowing every time we've been out there. So since it's shown as perennial, we need to treat it as perennial at this point. So we went back, we walked this section with Ed and Rebecca and I believe Steve.
Right.
It's a fairly incised bank along there. So I've gone back and flagged the edge. The blue line you see there is now the survey located boundary that
Do you want me to zoom in, or?
you
It's up to
can,
you.
for their information you want, sure. I think I tied 25 flags along there. And that is the survey location. And the thick purple line right here is the corresponding 200-foot riverfront area off that boundary. The green highlighted edge you see there, those are the wetland flags that we walked. You were in agreement with the delineation. It's fairly straightforward there. You know, you can see the slope goes up pretty rapidly on each side here. There was a question by Megan Selby this morning that does the stream channel continue down through here, and that should be flagged if it's part of the perennial stream. Excuse me. As we saw in the field, it becomes very threaded through the wider wetland in here.
Yeah, right.
And additionally, there's no other stream on the upstream or downstream side indicated on USGS. And if a stream is not shown, the only way it's perennial is typically if it's has a 1 square mile drainage, supporting drainage area, or at a minimum under stream stats, it has a half square mile drainage area and a flow. At the 99% flow duration, it's 0.01 cubic feet per second. Stream stat supports that this is a tenth of that in flow and area. It's only about 70 acres. So this would not be continued underneath the under the DEP regulations as well. So that's why this area was flagged. Like you said, we know it doesn't flow, but unfortunately, with the rainfall this year, you're not gonna prove it. So you have to treat it as perennial, and that, therefore, it's been flagged, and the 200-foot riverfront shown. The other comment was on the floodplain here. It is a mapped elevation by FEMA of elevation 757, I believe it is on there. She requested that we show the elevation and put a reference note as to what map it came off of. So that's been done on the plan as well. So the blue highlighted line is the edge of the 100-year flood elevation, which is mapped at elevation 757. So that corresponds to the actual contour elevation.
Okay.
Another area that Rebecca and I had walked was south of the old barn foundation, and this, Rebecca, I don't know if, can you zoom up
Yep.
on this area? Yep. So there's an old stone foundation here. I don't know if they used it as a crossing when this was active. The line you see in between the stone walls, that's a culvert. And then there's another little culvert here. It does not connect, they're broken. But there's a wetland here. It has its own little channel inside, so I flagged that as a bordering wetland. And it does have this outlet. When we walk this, it's really thickened with invasives in here, and mainly autumn olive. But we walk through here, and there's an area where, I don't know if it's old cart road tire tracks or whatever that have filled in, and they were holding water. And I identified some wetland vegetation, mainly herbaceous weeds, if you will, the garden yellow rocket, and some other, there's a couple of rushes and other things. So Rebecca had asked that we do a couple data sheets, so I did those and some supported those. This one is upland vegetation and upland soils. This one is 6 wetland plants to 5 non-wetland plants, but the soils again are non-hydric. So neither of these really qualify as a wetland. And I think those were the 3 outstanding items that were.
Those, one edit for the off-site, I think we added it
Oh, yeah.
on the top of the page, Heather.
To the top left, if you can pan down that way.
Oh, did you add the riverfront?
Yeah,
He asked for the riverfront here.
DEP suggested that potentially Lead Mine Brook projects riverfront onto the site. So we've added that approximate. I had this discussion with Megan. She said, well, you need to show, and I said, well, we can show it approximately because it's on private property. We're not going to go out and flag that entire length of Lead Mine Brook. So I said, a lot of times you just can't physically do it, whether it's trespassing issues or unsafe access to an area. So it was mapped by.
That's state land, right?
That is formerly the Commonwealth of Mass, yes, yep.
Currently.
Yeah, currently, right there, yep,
Currently.
yep. But it's fairly well defined on the aerial and GIS, so that's the actual center line way out here. The 200 you can see is off-site. There's a little bit of a bend in here. And they were fine with that and issued the file number, so.
Okay.
Those were the outstanding items from the site walk. There are actually, can you slide back that way just a little bit, Rebecca? Like I said, I wasn't here at the last meeting, but there are 2 small isolated pockets here. These will be qualified as wetlands under the local bylaw only. They have vegetation and hydric soils. So those were flagged as local jurisdictional wetlands.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'm glad that you addressed DEP's concerns with the riverfront. I guess I would just ask that she confirms that they're content with your explanation of
Yeah.
not including the rest of that.
I wrote back to her today, but I.
Yeah,
have
yeah,
not
right.
heard
It was correspondence today. It just came out today. So I think we just need to make sure we address that. And then, I wasn't thinking about in our regulations, I guess I didn't really look about if we have anything specific about riverfront in these types of situations where DEP might just be going off that. So maybe we should look at that a little bit. But I think we're probably pretty consistent with them with that. As far as the agricultural field area, I think I still have some concerns with this area, and thank you for doing the data sheets for those two areas. I think, I really went back and looked at like old aerial photos, and I think we know that this area was historic agriculture, probably hayfield or pasture or something of that nature. When we went out here, we could see, where these culverts were and came through, and that there had been some flow in here. I don't know if they were tire marks or not, but it looked like there was some evidence of hydrology there. There was the vegetation that was present. And as far as the vegetation, going back and kind of looking at the aerial photos, you can see that the whole site kind of autumn olive grew in, which would be expected when you stop maintaining these areas. Species like that would grow in. But I think what we noticed in this area here is that there's still an open area that comes through here, which I guess to me would maybe suggest that it's a little too wet for that species to grow in there. Unless someone was going in and mowing that little specific area, it kind of seems like that pocket. And then based off of your information that you submitted about, I think there was standing water in your hole at 12 inches and 1, and observations of water at 8 and 6 inches. Those indicators of hydrology, especially in these disturbed areas, I think, really looking at or having someone else look at too is useful. So I think there is a little concern based off of that evidence there. And then as far as the isolated ones too, I think they're probably not jurisdictional under Wetland Protection Act. It's just local bylaw. We do have provisions for vernal pool habitat. The larger the one potentially could support that. So that's something that if you are planning on developing these lots, as it appears you are, because it shows them as lots 1 and 2. We do have that 200-foot vernal pool habitat associated with those resource areas. We would have to talk about what type of, wildlife valuations or information we would need to get. Does it hold water for 2 months? What are we looking at there? Maybe it doesn't, but
I don't think it does, but.
Yeah, part of our regs require kind of showing that. So we'd have to look at those areas a little bit more for that.
Yeah, I think when we walked that, like you said, we noticed some hydrology standing up by the data points. That was following, heavy rainfall the day before. And there was no standing water in those pockets. As I mentioned, soil borings in there, it's
Right.
sand through, and
Yeah.
you don't see the water standing, you don't have the organic matter. It just doesn't look like it would hold, for a 2-month hydro period for critters, but that's certainly not the upper one. The larger one, as you can see, had a larger area that it could hold water,
Yeah.
but.
And then we might just need to look at the volume calculations as well, based off in the regulations, I think, what is it?
Yeah, the upper one is
Specific about the
well
storm
below, I think.
event that we would need for that. So we just have to, I think it'd be useful to kind of look at that a little bit more.
Did you do volume calculations on each of them?
Yeah.
Yes.
If you.
Based off the flagging, right?
Yeah.
Well, we topoed, granted, all the topography shots aren't shown there, but those are I believe half-foot contours for each one. And then a surface was created, and then the limiting elevation was used to compute the volume. So that's just a summary table that the software kicks out to compute that volume. So the one on lot 2 or the one on the right, I can't read it, but I think it says like 100 and, I can't read it.
The smaller one?
Yeah,
Cubic feet, 104.4.
yeah.
All right.
And the one on the left, I think, was around 600 cubic feet.
Yep. I mean, our regs say specifically how that needs to be calculated, and I'm trying to find it in front of me here, but it's based off of a certain storm size.
Well, that's only if the limit of the isolated land is in
Subject to
dispute.
flooding.
Pardon? Yeah.
For vernal pool habitat, I believe, yeah.
All right, what do you recommend? What you,
I mean,
How do
I
we go
think that,
what?
I mean, I felt comfortable with the line back here and over here. There was one little spot, but I think that's fine. And I guess I would recommend, you know, potentially having a third-party review look at that. just
Even
because it
without
is a-
having hydric soils to support? I mean, you get vegetation like that reacts quickly to surface hydrology, but, you know, the soils down to a depth of 20 inches had no indication of, you know, if they had been saturated for a long time at or near the surface, you would have had redox characters, oxidized rhizospheres, you would have had other indicators of long-term inundation there.
Well, you did say on D2 that you had redox in the B horizon.
Right, but
And
your
then, but you
matrix, your
had-
matrix chrome is just too bright. I mean, you can have fluctuating water tables like that.
But do you
Just
think
not-
that's, you know, a disturbed agricultural area, you're gonna find that within your
If
top
it-
layers?
Well, it hasn't been disturbed in, what, 20 years? I mean, certainly.
I
it's-
don't know how long,
Yeah,
but-
it's
Yeah, if you look at
15, yeah, if you look at the aerial photos compared and when the house was abandoned, it's been many
Yeah.
years. It's certainly enough time for,
Even when they were living there, they weren't using it.
no.
No.
Yeah, the photos, it looks, you know, the black and white 1990s photo, you can see some field area there, but since then, it looks like it's been left in furrow. And, you know, as you saw on the other side of the wall, that wetland there, you had very well-defined herbaceous and shrub species, and on this side, you just don't have it. You know, we have a few things that have popped up in those channels with the surface hydrology, but again, you know, we had clear hydric soils on the other side, on this side, you do not have them, so.
Right, and I think that was, you guys indicated their farm pond, so that
Well,
potentially.
it's
probably
hard to
was
tell,
a
the way
different
that
view.
is formed, if it's sat and started to fill in over time. I mean, it is interesting, the way it was, the shape of it,
Where are you talking now exactly?
the,
This-
That
green,
that-
yeah.
The green.
yeah.
Okay.
You know,
Oh, the
maybe
green
this
area.
was an old farm pond, they built this wall and had a culvert, so when this built up, and then it sat for so many years and it's just started to fill in with, you know,
Right.
herbaceous vegetation. If you walk in it, after a rainstorm, you will get into 4 to 6 inches of water pretty easily in the bottom of it, so. But the characteristics there and on the other side of the wall are just completely different.
It's just a recommendation.
Recommendation. Paul, you got any thoughts on this? No? Steve?
I'm happy with the results of the soil testing, and you know, I'm happy with the delineation as you've presented it, personally.
David?
In your evaluation for chroma levels, did you just auger or did you dig any pits?
No, I augured. I submitted the 2 data plots, one up near where the down outside part of the wall, which was the wetter area that Rebecca and I were standing in. There's like a
Yep.
little,
Yeah.
like I said, I don't know if it's an old, maybe it's when this channel used to flow, or it almost looks like maybe an old farm track. It's hard to tell because it's very overgrown now. And then I came down about, I don't know, whatever that is,
Maybe close
50
to
to,
100 feet.
yeah, 80 feet. We had another little area here that we saw some standing water. This is really overgrown with the autumn olive. There are some grasses here. One is what's called Pennsylvania sedge, which is an upland sedge. It's a grass-looking plant. And those soils are clearly non-hydric. Like I said, I did hit some fluctuating in here, but the parent soil is just too bright. I mean, it's got some fluctuating water table, you can tell, but it's not staying saturated for a long enough period to get those anaerobic conditions and get a reduced soil profile.
Well, that's why I was curious about whether you had dug a pit or not,
No.
because in looking for soil profiles and being able to see the discolorations,
Mhm.
sometimes it's more advisable to get a wider look.
Yeah, yeah, I did enough auger holes in there. I was happy with that. If it was very confusing, or I would have pulled out a shovel and done a full pit.
And you did say that you went down 18,
18 plus, I went 18 to 20 inches.
and the water table is?
Well, like I said, following the rainfall we had,
It's right
That
there,
seems to
right?
be the new normal, by the way.
yeah. On D1, which was this one, can you zoom up on that, please, Rebecca? Sorry. Is that D1?
Yep.
Yeah. D1, I had saturation at 8 inches. Depth of free water was not observed in that hole. And then up farther towards the wall, I had saturation at 6 inches and depth of free water at 14.
And still no chroma.
No, I mean,
That is
well,
really
the other
puzzling.
thing too is, this is why I think part of this is sitting in pocket. I mean, you can see are these 1 or 2 foot contours? Ian?
Those are 2 foot.
2 foot.
So you're going 2, 4, 6, 8, you're dropping 10 feet and 100 feet, there you get. I mean, so water is not gonna sit here for very long. I mean, you don't have a flat, like this contour, this is flat. And then you have like an 8-inch deep bowl here. This drops 10 feet over 100. You know, so water is not gonna be sitting there for a long duration period.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is there was a culvert here. You can see the topography, you know, shows channeling there. I think, you know, maybe this was, at some point was filled in, and that's why we're not seeing necessarily the soils that we're expecting. But, I mean, to me, that looks like a channel. So, I agree with Becky that.
How would you see proceeding?
You know, Becky had recommended having a third-party review of that. I think, you know, in my opinion, it warrants that. I agree with everything else that was, you know, on the plan, just that's the only area I have a concern of, just this area in here.
Brian, you didn't
If
do
I
a
can
test
point
pit
out, we
down
have-
here in the flat area?
What's that?
Did you do any soil
Yeah, I
examination
did,
down
I
here?
think, 1 or 2 the day we were on our site walk, but yeah, these were like 10 wire, 5, 6, they're so bright. I mean, and the vegetation there was clearly upland as well, but soil down there is very bright. And I think I did 1 or 2 with you when we were on the site walk, but I
Right,
did
just
do
quick
2.
augering, though.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, we have these swale, like these natural contour. It's a very hilly site. We have those features all
Yeah, you can
over
see it.
this property. So, you know, I think the farmer probably put that culvert and said, when my pond builds up, I'll send it out, and I'm gonna send it down the swale, because that goes away from his house. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to you guys, but.
The path of least resistance.
And then,
Right. I mean, there are a bunch of them all over the site, so.
and what about on the 1 and 2? On the potential vernal pools? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree that they're potential. We'd have to wait until springtime to see whether they are or not. I'm not so certain about the small one, but the larger one looks like it has greater potential.
I think, yeah, it would just be important to see how much water it holds and if it does hold water
Yeah.
for 2 continuous months.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Right, I
it
think
might not
Andy's
sit.
calculation shows the large one holds over your requirement of
Right.
200, it's
Yeah.
at 600. So I think size-wise it is. I think looking at it in the field, what the soil composition is underneath it, and, you know, the basin itself just has dry leaves in
Yeah.
it, there's no other vegetation. It just doesn't seem to present itself that it's gonna hold water for that long a period. And following the heavy rainfall we had a day and a half before, there was no water in it. So certainly, to appease you, I think, you know, to meet your bylaw, it'd have to be, like you said, looked at in the spring, unless you don't feel it holds water for enough duration, but I don't know how you're gonna determine that until spring.
Did that also come out at TYR?
What's that?
10YR?
No, that has, low chroma sandy hydric soils.
It
in
did.
Yeah, the bottom of it, yeah.
But the definition of it is very unique.
Oh, as far as vernal pool, right?
Yeah.
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 It meets it as your local wetland
yeah.
for certain, but whether or not it's a vernal pool,
See,
My feeling is it probably will not hold water for a steady 2-month period, but
Because of sandy gravelly conditions?
yes, and I believe they have historic test pit data on other parts of the front of that site that were done many years ago that show that it's sand and gravel as well. But
There was some soil testing that was done, I think, in 2015. Here and here.
My concern is, I'd like to see if there are vernal pools in the spring, but my concern with the third-party review on this area over here, because it is damaged. It's part of an old farm. I don't think we're gonna get a solution on, we may get a pissing contest, but we aren't gonna get a solution on whether it's
well said.
a wetland or not. It's definitely wet, and its drains get down off, but if you took channeling there, there's a lot of different places you could find channeling. And with so much rock in the substrata, I think we should.
And if I may, when I flagged that area south of there in September of 17, the wetland plants were nowhere near what they were this year. And like I said, I think they're weeds that a lot of them are facultative, so they're as common in upland as they are in wetlands. I think they've reacted to the rainfall we've had this year.
Yeah.
If you go back, if you did last summer when it was drier, I don't think you'd be anywhere close to that count,
Yeah.
so.
But you still had 5.4,
What's that?
wetland fact,
I'd say, 6.5, yeah.
6.5.
Yeah.
On the upper one, yeah.
Does anybody have a proposal that they would like to make?
Well,
First of all, we probably need to close the public hearing. Does anybody in the audience like to speak on this issue? Yeah.
do we close the hearing? I move we close the hearing.
Do I have a second on that? Problem is, we don't have a definition of where we're going. We haven't even been able to give them a solid indication of what the board is looking for.
Well, based on watching the meeting, I'm sorry I missed that. That was a lot of fun.
Did I miss that one?
It's a sick man speaking.
I'm drinking coffee to, no. There's two issues. One was whether or not that little drainage area, a wet area, is a wetland, and it's disturbed. We looked at, we've got the soils that indicate that it is not a wetland. There are facultative plants in there that are also in the upland. I'd say we should go with, I'm saying that we should agree with the consultant that that's not a wetland, and the delineation that he's presented, I think we should accept. The other issue that we had in the meeting last week or 2 weeks ago was lots 4 and 5, and the reason that people were holding up allowing this board, allowing those 2 lots to be released was based on whether or not that was a little finger of wetland over there, 500 feet away. And I think that based on the evidence presented, and if there's a way, a mechanism to release 4 and 5 as a part of this overall project, if we want to wait and do some investigation for vernal pools in the spring, we looked at the sandy soil. It's unlikely that those are vernal pools, but I'm not going to argue that part. But that, to me, last meeting was 4 and 5 in the delineation, and I contend that we should release 4 and 5 and accept that delineation. So in my mind, that's what they're here looking for, and that's why I'm comfortable with closing the hearing and going ahead and this commission discussing that and making a decision. You had a 2-2 vote on that last meeting.
But you'd have to require, your proposal would say that they would have to come back and prove that, the two, vernal pools are not vernal pools. And, I mean, you're agreeing with this delineation, but you're saying that under our town bylaw.
Right, I mean, I don't think they're vernal pools, but that's just based on the sandy, gravelly soil. I don't see how that could hold water. But I'm not a hydrologist, whatever, so I'm not gonna argue that. I don't think they're vernal pools based on the evidence that's presented. But that's,
I mean, can you issue an ORAD with the contention that anything future on lot one is dependent on proving or disproving vernal pool on lot one?
Wouldn't it be lot 1 and 2?
Well, lot two doesn't have the volume.
that's highly unlikely that.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
Right, that one's unlikely, but I think it's the
really-
Yeah.
200-foot vernal pool habitat that
Yeah.
you're looking at, so I think you'd have to keep
That's why
wherever
I'm
the
thinking
200
of it.
feet falls off of
all right,
at
well, you can
least
list one and two. I don't think two has any chance, but that's fine. I mean, you'd still have, if lot one comes back, then you'd certainly have the 200-foot around that one.
And I'm not.
Yeah, we
gonna
wouldn't
argue.
even define it by law, we define it by your delineation, and so therefore the 200-foot would be around the,
Oh, for the
larger
wetland
hole.
itself,
Yeah.
right, yeah, the one on lot two is a wetland, so it would still have your 200-foot buffer, but I meant as far as the vernal pool
yeah,
discussion.
well, that's, what- yeah.
That'd be a different issue, yeah.
All right, I think we have,
I mean, that's my take on what was discussed last meeting and what I'm hearing for the evidence today, and my having been down there and looked at those two.
all right, I'd like to
areas.
close the public hearing.
I move we close public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, now, a proposal of accepting the delineation with the exceptions. Steve, why don't you make it?
I move we accept the delineations, and I'm not sure which exception you're talking about, unless it's the vernal pool, the larger vernal pool on
Yeah.
lot one. Okay.
Shouldn't we first of all release lots 4 and 5, or have a motion to that end to find out what the board?
No, because they'll be released by our approval.
Oh, yeah, so you're saying, yeah, because they're outside of the
Yeah,
approved
outside,
boundary.
yeah.
Right.
So we'll be approving the delineation with the, and we will take exception to, well, not, I don't know if it's
The
even
motion
exception.
could say that.
Yeah,
To do further investigation of the potential vernal pools, if that's what you're talking about.
which is on,
On lots one and two.
on lots 1 and 2.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I would move.
Okay, do I have a second on
I'll second it.
that? Any further discussion on it? We seem to have beaten it. All right, all in favor? All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Yep.
Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Thanks for going out and doing that extra work.
Oh, no problem.
Probably be another 10 years before I see you again, huh?
I hope not. Good night.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Another drink of hard whiskey. Guess I shouldn't say
All right, now we are at, abbreviated
By the
notice of
way, in the
intent,
future,
resource
Mr.
area delineation, DEP file number 300, dash 1017, continued from 1016, 14 and 50 Dowdy Road, confirming the extent of the wetland resource area represented by Burton Engineering.
Your bad ear was facing us, but in the future, since the TV screen is on, it'd be really more appropriate to call it a urination contest. Just to be political.
Thought we got
correct.
that, you know.
Frank Bucari with Burton Engineering, representing the project on behalf of the owner, Peter O'Connell, along with Scott Morrison of
Serious business here, Frank.
Ecotech. Let the contest begin.
It already began.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Scott's going to lead this evening as, one of the outstanding issues was a depression on the north side of Dowdy Road. Was left in question, and so Scott's going to present his findings. Here, Scott.
We got it.
You got it? I just want to take a few minutes just to kind of go through the details of it. We delineated the wetlands Obviously, the Conservation Commission had a peer review consultant that came out, made some suggested recommendations for that. We made a number of changes. I think most of this stuff on the south side of Dowdy Road was insignificant, so those were just simply accepted. There was some additional wetland delineations on the north side. There was one area in question, just north of Dowdy Road, there's a small depression, kind of where the fields kind of funnel down together. I can hand these out. I provided.
They have copies of your
They
letter.
have copies
Your
of.
Yeah,
last
we
letter?
just got it,
The
yeah.
information I sent you this morning.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't make copies of that, so if you want to
I
pass
made
that out.
copies just because I wasn't sure how well this was gonna come out on the screen, so.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Ooh, pictures of dirt.
It's soil science 101 here. Whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Is there gonna be a test? Yes, there is, actually.
There may be, actually.
There will be.
So anyway, I met with Cassie Collins on the site, reviewed the delineation that we'd flagged some additional areas. She accepted all those. The last area that we looked at was the area just north of Dowdy Road, that depression, right? I always lose track of right there, right in here. There's a culvert pipe that drains this way. There's wetlands on the other side here. And there's substantial areas kind of from this high point this way and a considerable amount of area on this side that all drains down to this area. I went through and looked at the information and we did a number of test holes, actually excavated, used a soil, instead of using the auger, we actually opened up soil test pits with a shovel to really kind of examine the soils. The first issue we came into is I wasn't able to replicate the same colors that Cassie noted in her BVW field data forms. Regardless, what I did was, as you're looking at my report, I did kind of an analysis based upon what she's got for soil information and compare that to the F3 loamy and clay soils depleted matrix information, based upon the field indicators of wetland hydrology. That's what she used in her decision in her opinion, to come up with saying that there was a hydric soil there. Based upon that, you need a chroma of 2 or less, and has a minimum thickness of either 2 inches subsoil if it's within the upper 6 inches. Or, if you look on the second page of this, what I'm looking at is right down here, this F3. The second option would be starting at a depth of less than 10 inches, you'd have a 6-inch depth of depleted matrix. If you flip back to her form here, she's got soil horizon, so she's got topsoil is the A horizon. She's got a BG horizon. The G stands for glade. So that's what we're looking at for depth. So she's got a depth, the BG horizon with a depleted matrix, starting at 11 inches and extending down to 14 inches. So you've got 5 inches at that elevation. The problem being is that it doesn't qualify under Section A because it's not within 6 inches of the soil surface. We're down at 11, so it wouldn't qualify as that. And then under Section B, it's got to be a depth of you've got to need 6 inches of that B horizon, where you've only got 5, starting at a depth of within 10 inches. So the problem is, it doesn't meet 2 standards. It doesn't meet the standard that it's 6 inches thick, because it's only reported as 5, and it's not within 10 inches of the soil surface. So that, based upon GZA's interpretation and evaluation, the soils in that area don't meet 2 of the standards. So either one of them would prevent it from being classified as a hydric soil, and you have 2 of those. The other thing we looked at was soil colors, and then I was there with Cassie and one of her colleagues, and we were looking at kind of the soils, and we couldn't replicate the same color. We were getting higher chroma, and that also would kick you out. So that would be three indicators would determine that it wouldn't classify as a hydric soil.
So are you getting higher chroma at all depths?
Yes. Yep. And then interestingly, when you get, the deeper you go, the higher chroma you got. So if you go to 14 inches, you've got 10YR 5.6.
That's backwards.
So it's, you look at that and you say, it's unquestionably a non-hydric soil.
Right.
So that's, again, we looked at a number of holes, really evaluated it. You know, kind of the three of us looking, comparing soils, looking at what we found, and it was ultimately determined that it didn't meet that standard for these three reasons. One, because of color, two, because of the depth, and three, because of the thickness of that beachy horizon.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification and not to get into discussion, could you show us where you did these? Would it be okay?
Yeah, I think her evaluation was done. There's a culvert that goes underneath the road right here. And then this is pretty much the depression here. Her sample was right about where that is. So we did another sample there, did one over here, one here, and a number, I think 2 over in this area. So you've got kind of a disturbed area. It's an open field that's routinely mowed.
Right.
So the vegetation's rather mixed. But looking at the hydrology, it's unquestionably non-hydric soils. I actually went out there, stopped by the site shortly after we had like a 2 or 2.5 inch rainstorm event to kind of get a sense of, are you going to have any ponding in through here? There was no ponding whatsoever and no saturation. The other thing we looked at, I think the commission provided photos. There was a photo that we saw that showed like it was either ponding or ice within this depression. We looked
Right, that wasn't during the growing season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we looked, it was clearly outside the growing season, probably during the winter. And generally what happens, I've seen this happen on a number of cases where in fields you get deep, thick frost that prevents water from infiltrating through the soil surface. You get either snow melt or rainfall or the combination of the two, and you've got quite a sizable area here. So everything runs down and collects right here, and the culvert's actually, I want to say probably 6 inches higher than the base of this. So you're going to get 6 inches, 4 or 6 inches of ponded water, and it can either freeze or stay there until you get the frost leaving the ground, and then it starts to infiltrate. So it's seeing that in the winter. I've seen areas where there's considerable, not on this particular site, but other sites where there's considerable amounts of water that ponds just because you get that freeze, that frost layer, and the water just can't infiltrate.
It's perched.
It's perched. So then again, we determined don't have hydric soils, don't have evidence of hydrology, don't have a wetland here. There was no evidence of any flow coming through this channel here. I think it's just a matter of very, very heavy storms, considerable storms before you get flow through there. So where you don't have a wetland, there's no wetland to border upon the stream. So the resource area would be as delineated and approved by Cassie across the street through here. So it was determined at the time that that didn't qualify as a jurisdictional resource area, so we simply didn't flag it.
Okay.
Yeah, so to go back, like we provided that photo just to show her what we had observed, and that was in the winter, but we have observed it holding water throughout the growing season at different times. So it has held water, and we have seen that. We've seen flow going through the culvert, so we have seen that evidence during the growing season. When we gave her that photo, it was just because I had that from before, just to show her that area and what we had seen. Had kind of raised those concerns. Just a question going back to the F3 criteria used.
Yep.
Now, for these soils, why is it only F3 that would need to be used? Because looking at
No,
it,
you go through, Any
Right.
one of them.
For loamy clay soils.
Yeah, so if you
So-
want, we can walk through all of them if you
Well,
want.
F8 seems to be, it talks about depressions. It's not in yours. I think yours cuts out after
Oh,
6.
yeah.
So it's
Let me go
redox
back.
depressions. It has a different criteria, and it seems like this kind of, when I was going through, the NRCS guide there, looking at like the soil profiles that they showed, it kind of seemed a little bit more consistent with what we're seeing here. So I just had a question about using a different criteria besides just F3 for these soils. And then also going back to when you guys evaluated the soils, you said you couldn't replicate the 2.5Y 4/2, but then you say that you guys determined that it was a 4/3 or splitting between the two color chips of a 4/2. So it seemed like it was right there, like it wasn't too far off. When we had gone out there with Casey, which made me think about this FA criteria, we saw evidence of hydrology. There was redox features. There was concentrations of magnesium that she pointed out, and redoxized the roots there. So, there were some things that we had seen with her that kind of seemed like indicators of hydrology. We haven't been, I don't know how long it holds water or has saturated water, but that, we have seen it during the growing season. I have, when I go by there, I will look, but I'm not documenting if it's holding for the 7 to 21 days. But we have seen that. When we did go out there with Casey too, it was pretty clear that the vegetation, the grass has changed. So I didn't know if you guys did any vegetation sampling while you were out there, because she had the grass and the sedge. The sedge was an obligate, and the grass was a facultative wetland species. And you could kind of see that clear change, of vegetation. So it was different grasses on the upslope side. So I didn't know, we didn't have any information about that. That would, if those were the same, then maybe that could assist with that argument a little bit. And then also, I didn't know if you guys did any soil sampling in the upland area to compare either.
Yeah, we did a number of those. I actually did a number kind of going up, starting from here, kind of working my way up, and then, kind of working back down. Pretty consistent. Well, I think as far as, once you get into like here, it's pretty consistent. You've got even brighter colors coming up. Obviously, you've got that little depression. That F8 that you're talking about is, it's talking about vernal pools and
Yeah, it's
water
depressions,
basins and that
and it
sort of
talks
thing.
about closed depressions, although it talks about backwater areas off of, like in floodplains too. But it just seemed a little more consistent, so I didn't know if, it just seemed it was focused on like her F3. I didn't know if that.
F3, as you walk through, like you start, F1, you're into like mucky materials, and then you're kind of working your way.
Right, and we didn't
As-
really have.
What you from very wet, kind of drier, I
Yeah.
think, as the numbers increase. I think that's what what probably comes closest for this to fit, but it's still because of those three, color, depth, and thickness, so that glade horizon,
Yeah.
it doesn't qualify.
Now, GZA had commented and said that, that they didn't disagree with what you're saying, but that it was marginal. The wetland, the soils were marginal. Do you think because it's disturbance, because it's been agriculture, it could have been plowed, the area could have been filled in, do you think that that's kind of would be consistent for that type of area?
I don't know. I think they're using marginal. It's close because, like I say, they're talking about, at 11 inches when the standard is 10 inches. I think that's what they mean is marginal. That it's close in a couple aspects. Close in colors.
Versus 5 inches.
Yeah, close in color, close in depth, close in thickness, as in marginal, but it doesn't qualify on any of those.
And you don't think it would qualify for F8
I don't
with
think
the
so.
redox?
I don't think so.
But if it's
'Cause
close and we have plants that are obligate species, unfortunately that area got mowed, so that it can't be duplicated right now. But if we have obligate species, that also has to weigh in. And we
Right.
did have.
In disturbed areas where you've got mowed fields, you rely more upon soils that, don't change
But we
and
got
evidence
to
of
see the plants
hydrology.
before they were mowed.
Yeah, it was mowed tight when I was there to evaluate it in the first place. And I think it's grown over the summer, and then it gets mowed.
Right, yeah, we
mowed
asked
back
that they
in the
didn't mow
fall.
it so we could.
And a lot of the facultative or some of the species that she noted are kind of the early successional plants that come up first.
And they're borderline.
Okay.
Correct.
I wanna keep
Well,
it.
you said obligate, you said.
Guys, I want to bring this from them to here and then go down. So that we don't spend the whole night here.
Right, that's fine.
Okay? Anything else? Becky, are you
That-
set?
Yeah, that was all I had. I just didn't know about the F8. It seemed like it could, based off of that. So I just wanted to ask that question.
Yeah.
Make those
Yeah,
comments.
because it says, too, it does not occur in microdepressions, approximately 1 meter convex or plane landscapes. So this for a depression is only, like I said, it's 6 inches or less before it would discharge. So I think F8's for your kind of kettle hole depressions, your real areas that are vernal pools that hold water for prolonged periods of time.
Paul?
Grady ponds.
You want?
I don't know, at this point, it looks like we're doing a lot of hair splitting here. It's difficult.
Yep. Steve?
I didn't hear what Becky's recommendation was.
Okay. Becky?
I'm not really sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of information. There's, there's evidence of hydrology. We are really looking at the soils. It looks, what you guys saw was pretty close to what she had seen, but you pointed out some good things that are that you couldn't replicate in the field, in looking at her horizons. But, there's a lot of evidence of hydrology with the vegetation, et cetera. I think the soils probably are on the cusp, as GZA had stated, and I think, these areas are hard because they have been disturbed. I think it's a difficult spot, and I don't have a recommendation, I guess.
Okay. Steve?
There you go. Well, we have the two experts here, and they're both saying. I think just looking at the data on the soils, that I would agree that those get judged to be not hydric soils in that place, based on these data here. The plants, there were some obligatory,
Obligate.
thank you.
Mr. B?
I don't have the same constraint as Steve does. First of all, up until several years ago, plants were the deciding factor in Massachusetts, not in Connecticut. Second of all, we work to this document, which is the Wetland Protection Act. And if there's a question about whether it's a wetland or not, and it comes down to splitting hairs, as Paul indicated, I'm gonna lean towards protecting the wetland, because I remember one of our previous governors saying, hey, guys, there will be no net loss of wetlands in Massachusetts. And that's what the Wetland Protection Act is supposed to be doing. As far as I'm concerned, I'm gonna stand up for it unless I'm proven absolutely, without question, not marginally, but without question, that it's not a wetland.
I think unquestionably it doesn't meet the criteria. I'm using GZA's information to analyze that with respect to
Right.
field indicators. So it's not me doing
No,
these
I was not making an
calculations.
accusation.
It's I'm just using GZA's information and
Yeah.
saying that for two reasons it doesn't qualify as,
Right.
would not qualify as a hydric soil.
And it does have an obligate species on it.
I think she literally did the test plot, the only spot that's got that growing on it.
Yeah, but we'll never know that, Scott.
And that
Yeah.
was.
She
over
was
30
able to
years
plumb
ago
right
that
out-
They changed
yeah.
it to soil and plants, by the way.
And they changed that because soils are a better long-term indicator of hydrology.
I don't have a problem with that.
Because you can look at the colors and, you know, you could have an area that's, you know, all wetland plants and unquestionably non-hydric soils, or I think you were talking about an area with herbaceous vegetation that kind of changes throughout the years. So a wet year like today, you may have kind of pushing towards more wetland stuff. You know, 2 years ago when it was really dry, you had the opposite. So soils are the long-term indicator of hydrology. So I think they're a better indicator of what the long-term hydrology is by far.
Stephen?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really struggling with this. I guess I agree with David that my inclination is to treat this as a wetland, but I understand the arguments that are being made otherwise, so.
My frustration is that we'd have definitive information if we hadn't had a mowing, had an untimely mowing. And so that makes me, I listen to what Scott's bringing, and I'm still hesitant to move forward and say that it's not a wetland at this point in time. Maybe we leave it for a year, take a look at it in a year. That's a possibility to go back at it, see what's being grown in there if it isn't being mowed. That would be, give me the definitive end of what she showed us.
Well, if I may, what we're gonna end up with is soils that show one thing and a possibility of some wetland plants to grow
Right,
in there.
exactly.
Yep.
Or not.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, if I could just informally poll the commission, if you generally feel that it's a wetland, what would you feel the boundary of that wetland would be? Is it that lowest contour?
Yeah.
Would that roughly represent what you feel the wetland area is, or do you feel it's far extensive beyond
We
that?
don't.
I think we'd have to look at,
We can't answer
well, we
that.
probably could have used the plants, I think, but also I think the regulations say to look at, observed areas that it's holding water. So you could look at, in a rain event,
I'm asking just
where that
because-
line is.
Yeah, I think anything above this contour line, it
Probably
connects
not.
to that culvert.
Yeah. Can I just show you, like, it holding water recently?
Yeah,
Do
because
you
I've
wanna
never
see?
seen.
Okay.
And I was asking that question while she was getting this ready, just if we concede that that area is a wetland tonight and show it on a plan, sign it, I would ask that, if we deem it a wetland now, would we be able to come back next year with the vegetation, knowing the soils the way they are now, and reassess it?
This
And
was this weekend.
if the vegetation doesn't support that it's a wetland, have it removed and update the ANRAD accordingly. That's my thought process. That would allow us to close out, to move forward, treat it as a wetland for now until we can
That would satisfy me.
reassess at a point in time where it's more conclusive. I think I would just want to have it agreed upon of what that limit would be without having to drag this out longer, so we.
Well,
I
the.
know I'm asking a lot, but.
I'm not only if I'm gonna be on the committee in a year. I mean,
Right.
I can't make commitments for a committee
No,
in a
I
year.
understand
But I can say to you that, if we gave it a year's growing season, that it would seem to me that with the soils as they are marginal, that if we didn't have.
Wetter summer next year than we had this year.
We don't have wetland
Right.
plants, then, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could condition the ORAD in such that, the area.
That's what we can do.
Condition the ORAD such that it allows us to open it
All right.
back
Okay.
up again, as opposed to locking
Okay.
that in for the next 3 years and
Yep.
forcing us to work around that.
So you want something definitive in terms of a line?
Yeah.
The Marginal line.
Yeah,
on that
well,
property.
I think.
That didn't
allows
work out
things
so
to move
well.
Forward.
All right, I'm gonna,
But without that, I think we're continuing.
I'm gonna move this along.
But that would-
Anybody in the audience like to speak? Go ahead. Yeah. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Cheryl McCune, and I live at 5 Dowdy Road. I've lived up there for 32 years. In this area, if it's what I going down the hill towards Holland Road. That's pretty marshy throughout the year. As
Yeah.
my observations.
Yeah.
So I don't know
Okay.
what you consider a wetland, but it's always pretty wet.
Marshy is a good definition.
It's a good definition, yeah. Anybody else? All right, motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Here. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. So I would like a motion from someone to approve the delineation
No.
that we were given by Cassie with the exception.
She didn't delineate
What?
the line. She didn't delineate a line. We don't have
Okay,
a-
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
All right.
she just said that this area should be delineated
Yeah.
in the channel.
Okay,
She couldn't do that because that wasn't within the purview of what she was hired to do.
all right.
Yeah, and when we
Scott,
went
can-
out there, if the two of us, you know, I think even if she still thought that this area was wet, I would have just hung up flags and we would have called it a day.
Okay, then what are we
I was
working
under the
off,
impression
Becky?
that when we left,
What are we working off? for?
everything had been resolved.
Okay.
We just- we
I'm gonna
did
try and
revise
bring that
the-
in, because we've closed the public
Hmm?
meeting, so I'm gonna try and, we'll probably have to come back to you for something anyway, but I'm,
I'll
well,
sit here then.
so what are we gonna move that off of?
Well, if we can, if they're requesting that we figure out a line and we maybe move forward
We're-
and then maybe
Or to-
reevaluate.
Why don't you put it back up on the screen?
Yeah.
the
I mean, I
plan.
And I suggest that.
I can amend the plan right now. I
Yeah.
can, if you have a hard copy, I can write in what I feel the line is
So point
initially
it out to us up here,
and date it.
and if we all agree to it, then write it in.
So what I propose is that we use this contour line essentially as the wetland delineation, bring it to the edge of the road here, maybe within a foot or two of the road, and basically use this contour as the wetland.
But Frank, don't forget, if you do that, then we also have buffer zone.
I understand that.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
And we have, the 25-foot no disturb, 50-foot no build. I would
Okay.
say that anything happening in the roadway would be a redevelopment.
Correct.
To 25 feet.
But going backwards also.
Understood, yep, and so we'd have the sides. Idea being that we would put a lot, revise lot lines, put a lot line down the middle of it, work to either side of the lot and stay outside your jurisdictional areas, so we
Okay.
I think we'd wanna
have that
make,
as a contingency coming in this evening, knowing that things might go this way, and so we want to be prepared for that.
I think we need to put a bank here too with the channel. If this is
We,
gonna,
we can just tie it into that. The channel's the culvert,
well,
so it flows to that culvert.
with this little, there's a little channel there. Would you include that
Yeah,
as
but they
channel
can
or
include
no?
it just to that
Okay.
culvert.
I-
And the other thing to
Does it
keep in
affect-
mind too is that this particular area is already in the buffer zone to the wetlands across the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Can I make a comment? I would feel more comfortable, instead of just saying this contour, I don't know where that, I would feel more comfortable of where this culvert is and the amount of area that gets filled in based on the height of that culvert. So in other words, it might go to the second contour, it might go to the third contour, I don't know, but I would feel more comfortable of defining that.
Well, now might be a good time to look at it and see what's
Right.
happened recently with this large storm and persistent rain that
So
we're having.
Then can we close, approve with the provision that an updated plan be provided?
Yeah.
And
For that area.
that plan is the delineation and
I would
whatever
be
that
happy with that.
elevation
Yep, I have no
ends up
problem
being
with
for
that.
the culvert, will follow that culvert elevation and follow the topography at that culvert elevation?
Okay.
All right,
It's not
One of you
gonna- I mean,
one of
we know
you
it's 6
gentlemen
inches,
like
it's not
to-
gonna-
That's a good meeting.
It's not
Go
gonna
ahead.
push us, 10 feet
Stephen.
up the slope, so.
give me a proposal.
All right, so I move we approve the delineation with the comments that we just made about that area being considered a wetland based on the amount of area that's filled with the culvert that's in place.
Do I have a second on that
I'll second it.
motion? Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Scott, how does it feel to lose that contest? Because you just lost the contest.
Yeah, now you
All right, now.
We can move.
We'll visit it again in the next summer.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
Scott.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Now we're,
Appreciate the lesson.
Hey, anytime.
all right. Notice of intent DEP number 300-1018, continuation from 1016 Dowdy Road and Stallion Hill, represented by Burton Engineering, Inc., application, P. O'Connell.
So if this is the sewer extension, we're still determining internally what the overall program's going to be for the build-out of the site. We have submitted 2 driveway applications. We have 1 septic design that we've submitted to the town. So as of this point, we're proceeding to develop the property on wells and septics, but we haven't determined at what point we're going to stop with that, potentially using the sewer extension. So we're having some internal discussions right now on if we're going to need the whole sewer extension, possibly just the gravity line. And so we're requesting a continuance of that to figure that out, because if we're only going to use the gravity portion of it, we have to get Greg Morris updated plans showing just the gravity portion. He's not going to approve something that we're not going to install. So internally, we're having some discussions, and that's where we're at with the sewer extension.
Well, since we're well behind here on our schedule, I'd like to approve a continuation for them.
I think that's a grand idea.
All in favor of a continuation to the next meeting?
Thank you.
Thank you very
can
much.
Continue it for, doesn't need to be on the next meeting if you're full. We can
Well, you can
go a meeting
talk
or
about-
two,
talk about
probably,
it,
because
get
we're
that.
still figuring that out, so, but thank
Skip
you.
the next meeting for that one?
Yeah, let's
Or why
skip-
don't you send us a proposal asking to be on a
Yeah.
further meeting
Right, 'cause we-
date within a certain time?
Okay, we are now at
If you don't come to the next
SZB.
meeting, we're gonna miss you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, say hi.
Now, we are at 7:45. SZB, notice of intent, Sturbridge zoning bylaw, section 4.04, Dowdy Road, A&R, lot 5R, construction of a single-family home, house driveway. All right,
So last time we were here, we kind of opened this up, but there was some question as to, how close we were to the area that we were just discussing, as far as setbacks go. And so I had shown a limit of work shown on the left-hand side, shown as, looks like a chain link fence symbol, but it's basically just an orange construction fence on the left-hand side denoting the limit of work. And I showed a 200-foot offset from that, right there. It's supposed to print color, but it didn't. So if this depression area, now that is a wetland, we're still more than 200 feet away from it. So we would still just be local bylaw jurisdictional and not DEP jurisdictional with these driveways, even with this being a wetland. So we wanted to demonstrate that we're outside greater than 200 feet away, so the work would still be governed under your local bylaws within the 500 feet on slopes greater than 8%.
But it's a straight A&R,
Excuse me?
A&R.
At this point, yes, it's all been A&Rs. We have not submitted any subdivision plans. And right now, the subdivision that we were initially proposing has been taken off the table. One of the reasons being the delineation and the wetlands and the crossing, some initial feedback that we've received from town officials, and we're proceeding with these 2 right now. We have more septics that we have good perks for, more perk tests that we have viable septics. And so right now, we can continue developing on wells and septics at this point without subdividing, without a definitive subdivision, subdividing through A&R process only. And so similar, we submitted a revised A&R to create the R lots, so that's the revised. So these lots were revised to accommodate these houses, and similar revision would happen, like I said. So right now we have a property line shown right here, which would make this lot basically undevelopable with a wetland in the middle, and so we'll probably put a property line right here, put another, and you have the property line over here already, so figure out a developable area working around those wetlands.
yeah,
So-
what you're here for is just 2 driveways.
Excuse me?
Yeah, we don't
Yep,
care
sorry.
about
Yeah,
the
so give me
property
the picture,
lines.
but yeah,
Frank,
we're here for the 2
Sorry,
driveways.
do you have the tear sheet and the butter notifications?
I thought I gave you the butter notifications last time.
For these lots?
I thought I had.
We didn't have them on that agenda. So Nicole filed these, sorry, I should have said it right.
Okay, because I didn't bring them with me, no. What did I give you last time then? I thought I gave you those.
At the last meeting?
Yeah, I thought I gave you those notifications.
Well, we didn't have public hearings for these the last time. We just had the ANRAD, and we discussed these lots and needing to file.
Yeah.
So the filing
Okay,
came
so we
in
did-
after the last meeting.
Shoot, so, okay,
Filing
so I
October
don't have
19th.
those.
So would you like a continuation?
I guess so. Unfortunately,
Andy, did you hide that paperwork?
I'm sorry, I thought we had submitted that paperwork for that.
Does anybody have any issues or concerns that you could pass on to them? About,
I got a couple
about the
comments.
driveways? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, well, one thing, we're just looking at the zoning bylaw here, but with the driveways, with the swales coming down,
Yeah.
they connect to the swale that runs along the road that empties into the resource areas. I didn't know if thinking
Yes.
about long-term kind of impacts to the resource area, if there's some way, try to look for, other, like BMPs, like a rain garden. Can you direct the swale to a rain garden over here, so we're not taking a lot of runoff down into the swale? Is there some type of BMP you can implement that'll help with the long-term impacts to the resource area? Because that's kind of what we're thinking here, is one, kind of conditions during construction, making sure, we've got some straw bales up, or, different conditions to follow. I think we can condition those type of things during construction, but I really thought that because of the steepness coming down, and we know the swale is feeding the resource area down here, that maybe there's something we can do that we're not taking the driveway runoff. That could be a good,
Yeah, I think initially we weren't proposing any stormwater because we didn't trigger stormwater requirements. And so we were thinking just check dams in the swales as a conveyance. And essentially, it'd be cleaned as it goes through the swale. It would continue along the side of the road and Doughty Road and eventually into the swale, into the wetlands.
vegetated swales, or?
Yeah, vegetated swales with check dams, so.
But wouldn't we also want to have the driveway canted?
Yeah, so they are pitched. They are pitched to the side. So the swale's right here and the driveway has a bit of a pitch to it. It's not too much, but they are meant to be pitched.
Enough to shunt off?
Yeah.
So you don't get the velocity?
Yeah, so there's a little berm right here between the two driveways and then a swale. So the idea is that the water comes down, swale, and then culverts at the driveways to continue the swale along the
Where
side
are
of the road.
the check dams, Frank?
So I didn't put them on here and I need to add them. So the
But,
idea
yeah,
would
we
be
could,
to have
yeah,
check
if something
dams.
like
Yep.
that could, be an improvement, maybe you could infiltrate a little bit there. Less ends up in the swale, which means less, driveway runoff and
Well, we don't want to
herbicides,
cause,
pesticides, et cetera.
we don't want to cause an overload either, Becky.
Right.
That swale is designed for easy flow off of all of the fields.
In the road.
Oh, as far as up here?
Yeah.
Right.
One thing that Andy Cormier from Escape States, one thing that just occurred to me that we might be able to do is you got all this field out in here, so maybe we could get some, except once we get past the area where we're doing a cut, we could get some of this to head out this way, maybe even pick up some from that side with a drop inlet and pipe it across and do a rain garden, like you said, in this open, that's all field, it ain't doing nothing, the house gonna be way back there, so we could utilize that to treat the water and maybe cut off 50% of the volume, and then we're only picking up what we got right there. That wouldn't be such a bad thing.
That would
And I
be a
think
great
if you
improvement.
put the check dams in this, like, I don't know how much goes into this, but maybe you wouldn't end up you made the swale almost like a rain garden going down with the check dams.
The idea
You
is that
might
the water
not,
kind of backs up behind the check
Yeah,
dam, so you
yeah.
get.
We did something
that
just
could-
like
That
that.
could be good, and then you might not need to put a
Good.
pipe underneath someone else's driveway on a different lot.
Yeah,
We
you
did
can
something
make
just
the
like that in
swales-
Oxford.
Oversize the swales a little bit with the check dams, and I
Yeah.
think that'll accomplish.
Yeah,
generally what
we
you're
did
looking
something
for.
like that in Oxford that worked really good. They were almost like little pools that just spilled one into the next, into the next, into the next, and that worked really good for volume and helped it to sink in a little. And I think some of that water going down here, doesn't it gets caught by catch basins there
Yes.
before it reaches that, and
Yeah,
it
it
ends
is.
up getting across the street.
Yeah, there is an inlet.
Yeah, that would be that's a nice improvement, Andy.
All right, so we're looking for a continuation?
Yep, respectfully request we continue.
Okay.
What's the
More
next
information?
meeting date?
All in favor of continuation? Thank you very much. Yeah.
Do we have
Okay.
any comments from
Comments from the
the
public?
public?
So
Okay.
we're putting this off because
You have to introduce yourself, Mr. Cormier.
Yeah.
Cormier, I'm representing Peter Connell tonight, the owner of this property, and he's not very happy right now. So I'm gonna have to go back to him, tell him that this meeting's gonna be another 2 weeks.
Yes,
So we can't touch anything up there, that we can't build a driveway or anything.
we're waiting for,
What are we waiting for?
The
I-
butter
The
notifications.
butter notifications, I thought we had brought him last time, and I think we brought him for the ANRAD, and so I didn't bring him this time, so that's my fault.
Okay.
So just so you know the process too, so, you know, if we review it at the next meeting,
Yeah.
approve it, it's still, you still need the issuance of a permit, so it doesn't mean you can start the next day too. You have to get the permit and
yeah.
go
They
through
know.
those steps too, so it's
Oh, we
just so
have
you,
permits and all that.
We have driveway permits, but just, we need to get this permit for this, the,
you need orders of
order
conditions.
conditions.
The conservation permit.
yeah,
Okay,
the
so-
order conditions.
okay. Make this clear to me.
Yeah.
We're gonna wait 2 more weeks so we get the paperwork to that.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna wait another 2 weeks?
No, I think Becky takes care of getting the order conditions typed up and ready for us during the week. We don't have to wait for a meeting.
All right. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
New bu-
6:15 and 6:30,
Okay.
November 20th.
Thank you.
Okay. What do we go through?
What are you here for?
Because I want to get some trees cut down at 40 Goodrich Road.
Okay. Come on up.
Come on up here, I'm glad
I
you
thought
asked.
were here for the last one, so. Are you Cliff?
I am.
Come on up, Cliff.
So you having fun yet?
I'm very interested in the process here.
Yours is a simplified process
It
than
was
this.
an easy one, yeah, thanks. Compared to what I've witnessed tonight.
Maybe it's good to see those first.
You still need to introduce yourself, though.
Oh, my name's Cliff Gibson, and I have a 3-season cottage on Lead Mine Pond at 40 Goodrich Road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me get there. So this is tree removal. We did go to this site.
Yeah.
There's 4 trees total, 3 small, 1 large oak. I don't have any photos from the site because I didn't take any, but you guys were there. I did, after I spoke to you, I did call the arborist.
Did he send you, did he send a
They didn't send
requirements?
anything, no. I spoke to the receptionist and she
Yeah.
said that he was a certified arborist, that he looked at the tree and they were gonna send me something. I did not receive that.
Called them that day too, and they
You
said,
did?
we'll
They-
send it, they said, yeah, she just called us and we'll send it right over. I said, great, and I never gave it another
Yeah,
thought.
no, I know when I was going through my notes before the meeting that they didn't. But that's the oak that was leaning, that had the exposed roots. So they
This all-
can consider that and,
Yeah, this all stems from my insurance company. You know, we bought this cottage 1 year ago, and I had an insurance company, and I changed insurance companies because I didn't like that one. But these guys came out and did an evaluation and said, you need to cut some trees back and prune off, a couple. So I had an arborist come in, and I said, what's dangerous here? And he gave me an evaluation, which I sent to Becky, and gave me an estimate to do it. So that's what brings me here tonight. My insurance company says I got to get some stuff done on around. But all my neighbors said, don't touch any trees. Don't touch any trees until you go through. I said, okay, because I live in Connecticut, and I said, okay. So I wanted to do everything right. So I contacted you and said, what's the process?
Thank you for.
Well, I got good neighbors too. They have.
Like your neighbors.
Now we like.
Did everyone?
They live there all
see
year
the
round, so
trees?
they said, no
We have a
trees,
pro-
please.
We all saw them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did anybody have a problem with them?
I'm good with all of that.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Have a nice day.
On the record.
so we'll send you a letter. We'll email it and send it to you,
So
saying
can
that
I-
you're all
can-
set.
Can I
and
contact the vendor and?
yeah, let them know you
Don't
received
stump
approval.
them though, just leave the stumps in the ground.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
he's-
that'll be in
we-
the
we-
letter.
he-
Either that or
he was-
you'll have a mudslide and your insurance company will be really,
The last thing I want is a muscle. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for
Thank you.
asking me why I was here.
Sorry we waited so long.
Yeah, sorry that.
There's a lot of abutters that come in for hearings, so you never know if someone's waiting for something.
I came to listen to the process, even though
Yeah, I
you
think
told me,
that's
I don't think you have to
so
be there. And I said to my wife, I think I'd
But
like to
I'm
be
just
there.
here to listen. I said, okay.
Well, it'll be the
All right.
last time you see me, because there's probably, there's some trees hanging over the lake, they're dead, and eventually I may wanna come back to you for that.
Yeah.
But tonight, it's just
Yeah.
to appease my.
So you were just testing the waters.
These are not waters I wanna test.
okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a nice evening.
What
Okay,
kind
let's
of
go, Becky.
trees?
You got a vacation to do.
Yeah, I know. All right.
I don't Okay.
It's not a test I could pass. I would have to ask you to come down and tell me what kind of trees.
Okay, that one's done.
There's a lot of dead trees that I certainly can't,
What?
tell you where they're gonna go, but.
Yep,
that's-
sorry.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Yep.
Thanks, have a good one. All right, letter permits.
Yeah.
We have the Trails Committee, not company. Trails Committee is doing a shed addition at 52 Stallion Hill Road. That's at the Riverlands property. The shed is going to be attached to the current shed. It's approximately 100 feet or so from the water. I advise they just do a letter permit application. I have no concerns with the project. It's under our local bylaw.
Everybody in agreement with that? All in favor?
Okay, we have another letter permit from the Trails Committee. This is the Burgess Trail, the Discovery Trail.
Yep.
They need to reroute the trail, a small portion to avoid a potential spring wet area. They've been doing a lot of maintenance. They thought what they were doing would fix the area. They thought it was coming off from the detention basin from the school, but they'd like to just reroute the trail a little bit to avoid continuing maintenance issues there. I think it'll be an improvement by moving the trail.
Yep.
this
It's
small
an
area.
improvement and it protects the wetland.
Yep.
All in favor? Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. We have some other tree removals. That was 40 Goodrich. We have 72 South Shore. I did go by here. It's 4 dead small trees immediately adjacent to the road. There are multiple other trees in the area. I didn't have any concerns as they were dead and there was other trees, and it's about 100 feet from the lake edge.
All in favor?
Which site was that?
72 South Shore.
Thanks.
Yep.
Oh, I had it as 81. I checked off 81.
We did Shore Road already.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we have 26 Birch Street. This is a dead oak tree. I have photos of it. The tree was actually, they contacted us, and this is actually coming up quite a bit, but people who are concerned that the tree, all these dead oaks are losing a lot of their secondary limbs, and they're concerned they're falling on their house. She sent pictures where it was falling. I did get proof from an arborist that it was dead. I saw photos. They wanted to remove it before our meeting. I did not think it was a concern, so I did give that approval as it was dead. There's multiple other trees. Sorry.
So
But-
I'm not in favor of removing it, are you?
Well,
I like dead trees.
Don't you see something wrong with this whole picture, though? Birch Street wants to get rid of an oak tree.
Yeah.
Right.
It sounds like a family feud.
All right, so that's a,
so
it's
I
done.
did say it's
Yeah.
already down, no stumping occurred.
Yep.
There are other trees there
Yep.
too, so.
Next,
We need to vote on that, though.
all in favor?
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Vice
Mr.
Chair.
Freeland gets his tree. Yeah.
You gotta keep them in line, man.
Yeah. I'm
5
trying.
Library Lane.
Yeah?
There are 3 dead trees here. The house sits, Walker Pond's on one side. We have intermittent stream on the other side of the road. Both are over or approximately 100 feet from the resource areas. 2 dead oaks in the yard, visibly dead. I went out there, and a small dead crab tree. I don't think that, based off where their location is, that it is a concern to take them down or to replace them.
A lot of the vegetation on Library Lane has been diminished, probably as a result of some of the water. Is there a need for any kinds of shrubbery replacement or tree replacement for these 3?
Well, he's not, the association has the property on the shore, so he's set back a little bit, and there's a lot of vegetation on the bank going up there.
Oh, okay.
And this is
All right.
close to his house in the yard, so I don't see a need.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All in favor? Library Lane. What else? What do you got?
All right, we have a forest cutting plan. It hasn't gone through the Board of Selectmen process yet, but he just started initiating that. I did, where is it? Sorry, I'm going too slow for you.
We want you to be on vacation and be happy.
Me more
Sure
than
she
you.
does.
All right, so I reached out to DCR, I reached out to the plan preparer, asked some questions. This is on Arnold Road. Do you want me to pull it up on the screen? we're gonna do a site visit out there. I'll give you a
Okay.
summary. I reached out to the forester, hadn't heard back for a little bit, contacted DCR. He had gone out the day before. He didn't really have any concerns with the plan. These are specific plans, stands that are targeted within the property. It was harvested about 12, 15 years ago. He did flag all of the stands. He kind of was overly cautious with resource area protections. So when there's probably some of what he indicated maybe as an intermittent stream probably isn't even. It's probably just sheet flow. So he's actually got stream crossings at all those places, which is nice. He had filter strips for those too. So he's got specific stands that he's targeting within the properties that are flagged. And then he's got areas of regeneration that he's got flagged to leave as well. Which I thought was really good. So the forester, DCR's forester, didn't really have many concerns here. His only concern was really that the property boundaries may not have been flagged appropriately and just getting that taken care of. So he was okay with it. I did talk to him yesterday, the plan preparer, and I have a site visit scheduled with him on November 19th. I don't know if you got my email, if you can go. We can look at it.
I'm gonna go.
And that will be before it goes to Board of Selectmen, so we can write our memo. I can write a memo to them based off the results of that site visit. So
You can't tell anything from the plan, but when you go on the site visit, I'd really appreciate it if you look carefully at the landing site.
He did talk about the landing site, and he talked about adding crushed stone there as well. He said he did have some concerns, and he had a plan for that. I didn't really take notes when I spoke to
Well,
him
I want
too
you to
much,
look
but-
at it, though, from the perspective of the slope,
Okay,
because I remember that we had a problem with the first cutting plan 8 or 10 years ago, or 10 or 12 years ago, in that they were setting up a staging area that was on the slope.
okay,
It was guaranteed for runoff onto the road.
okay. So he's got 2 landing areas. We'll check those out.
Check 'em out.
Yeah.
And this may be on either side of the street, with the Mass Turnpike running this way.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Well, it might be a good place for erosion controls to,
Steve, I'll email you this so you can look at
Sure.
it before we go, because I won't be back.
okay.
Until
Or
right
make a
before.
copy, and what's the day? Tuesday, obviously.
Or, right,
Make a
or-
copy, and I'll swing by and
Ashley, you want, yeah,
Esther,
I'll leave it with
Ashley.
you to make a copy. You want to write a?
Again,
I'll
Let me just
pester
give it to
her
you now,
again.
so I don't lose it in my mess here. Yeah.
I will be back.
So what do we need to do with this tonight?
Nothing.
We don't really need to.
FYI.
I need to
Okay.
email DCR if we have any concerns or if we're okay with it.
Yeah.
I don't even have to. I already asked him questions.
Right.
And told him that I was trying to get out there. He even offered to bring us out there, but I didn't think it was necessary. He went with us, so.
Yeah.
I like our forester. He's very responsive.
Yeah, excellent.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once after we go out there, then I think he was aiming for December 3rd for Board of Selectmen, so we can give you the results of our site visit at our next meeting, and you can,
Go from there.
yeah, exactly. All right.
What else?
I have that on my calendar.
Yeah, those
We
certificate of compliances.
have, yep, all right, so that's that. All right, this is a certificate of compliance for the National Grid, or any power they call themselves now, reconductoring project that came through a few years ago. They submitted a request about this time last year, and I went out, they had a mitigation, I went out and met them, walked the power line, that was fun. And then we looked at, there was a mitigation area within Wells State Park where they did
Yeah.
plantings. Well, Wells staff went in and cut all the plantings. They brought me over there and they're like, yeah, this is the area. I'm like, am I missing something? Where are the plantings, you know? So they replanted, they put up signs saying naturalized area, do not mow, and train the staff or whatever. So they sent documentation. I went out there and checked it, so it looks good. So now we can sign there.
Sign it up.
Certificate of
Train the
compliance. There are no ongoing conditions for this one.
Train this thing.
Keep them rolling.
Okay, 28 Breakneck Road. This request came in July. I went out there. This is a septic replacement at an existing single-family house. They had a couple piles of loam by the septic. They were still doing some work, so I told him, I asked him what he was doing, and made him put up erosion controls, because they already took the other ones down, so he did that up. They were just kind of adding some more soil and seeding it within the existing yard at the mound of the septic. So I asked him, I said, just wait, let me know when it's done, I'll come out, check it. So I went out, it's fine. So that one's all set. They do have some ongoing conditions, just those basic ones like no further alteration or resource area impacts, et cetera, that are commonly put in there.
Sign that.
Then we have 20 Cedar Lake Drive. This is a request for certificate of compliance for a, he did like reconstruction of a retaining wall on Cedar Lake. And I think the original one was more, I think it was stone and cement, and he kind of built a stone wall. So I went out, it's fine. This one actually, he did the project, didn't record the orders of conditions. So we signed new ones because he didn't have them. He went through the process, he brought them to the registry, he recorded them, he submitted his request, and now we're gonna close it out.
Fantastic.
It's all set.
I love that.
So it actually happened to be a random one that we pulled out of the drawer because we're starting to do follow-up. We're trying to find time to do follow-up on these projects, and this was one of them that.
What?
I think what we'd have.
Hey, I
is,
liked your letter with all of the dates on it and everything.
Was it too harsh with the bolded?
No, I liked it.
What? Which one? The one of the meeting dates and stuff? Okay.
Yeah.
I like, yeah, I took pictures, right?
And it said, and Becky has a sandwich on such and such and so and so time.
What?
I think what we could accomplish if Ashley had more hours.
Yeah.
Just astounding.
She could wear us all out.
I know. Do we want that?
No, I don't think we do.
All right, so,
Just kidding.
we received notification from Finance Director that, I don't know that you've ever even asked for these, but it's something that we should think about for the future, but it's the fiscal year 2020 betterment request and capital funds request.
Yeah.
So not sure if you ever have thought about anything. I did want to bring it up at our meeting. I don't have anything to add on for that, but I did want to ask you, as you are the board, if you had any. I wanted to pass the information along.
We did use it one time, maybe a dozen years ago, when we submitted a request for the equipment to do the water testing for the Lakes Association, which at that time did not exist, because the Conservation Commission did the lakes testing. And so we got, we got 5 or 6 different pieces of equipment. There was some
Discs.
Secchi disc was one of the things that we got. We also got a dissolved oxygen system. The whole thing that's in the box, that mostly came
Yeah.
from Sturbridge Tourist Association
Yeah.
monies.
Yeah.
Where is that now?
Well, I think the thing is,
Still here.
yeah.
It's still here.
I don't know if any of it's becoming outdated or needs to be replaced or not, but
It should have been the stuff that they take out with them every year.
yeah, I mean, he had a lot of stuff downstairs, and he kind of went through stuff when he came to getting. He's like, oh yeah, we don't use this anymore. Or this.
Who is that?
Chris Mazika, he heads
Okay,
it.
yeah.
So, do you think that it might be worthwhile asking them if there's anything that's needed?
Yes,
That would be
Okay.
good, yeah.
Okay.
because that is a really
That's a good idea.
important program.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's probably a lot of other things we could do, especially with the conservation properties, but if we had a plan in place, you know?
Well,
She
for
did-
example, we have property that we own up on Finlay Road that we had a forest cutting plan on in 2005. And the forest cutting plan went awry because by 2007, when the prices for lumber started going up, we had the financial fall, and 2008 came, and it wasn't worth cutting the trees because you couldn't sell them.
That's the
Yeah.
34-acre parcel we have
Yep.
up
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you had a forest cutting plan.
And
We
Yep.
did, yeah.
for
And did you
equipment,
use
what-
betterment funds for that?
No, not that I know of.
But yeah, what we needed to do was to have a forester be able to be paid to go out into the field to be able to do an evaluation of what it would take to
But I
get the
don't think
forest
we
cutting
used, I
plan
don't think we
going.
used betterment funds though, on that one.
I don't know what we used.
Yeah.
It costs like,
Couldn't be CPC
$9,000
because
or
it's
something.
not.
it's like
Huh.
$200 or something to
Well,
get the guy to go out there.
I think
But then
it
there's
would fall
funds that
under
come back in
betterment,
after the
though.
plan.
Like
Oh,
programs
good,
or projects that tend to enhance the beautification, recreational resources, or public safety of the town, which are in clear
Would-
mutual
yeah.
interest. I don't know. I mean, it's food for thought, stuff to think about. I will reach out to Chris about that, but if you can think of anything else, they don't
Good.
give us a lot of time. so this email came out, yeah, they gave us a month to think about it. I don't, maybe people who've been here longer know to think about it in advance, but the capital funds one, though, they also ask, they have the same 1 month deadline. So this is what the lakes testing stuff would come out of, I would think. But they also ask that the town's required to develop a 5-year capital plan. So in addition to our capital needs for this coming fiscal year, they want to know what we want for 2021 to 2024. Type of item needed and estimated cost.
2021, 2024, holy mackerel.
Yeah.
We definitely want Ashley to research that. What do we need in 2024?
Crutches for me. Oxygen.
We'll need oxygen. Walkers and oxygen.
And I just have to ask what can be asked for. I mean, I'm sure like big office equipment things come out of that as well, but, you know, other things as well, so. lake
We
testing.
get some slickers and boots for those rainy day field site visits.
All right, what else?
January meeting
Yep,
date?
let's do the January meeting dates.
What?
January meeting dates.
What do you want for January dates? What does it look like?
Well,
What does it look like on your
We
calendar?
won't know about this whole Tuesday night thing. Oh, thank you. Do you have all of these? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
Thank you. What was I gonna say?
Might it
Stick with
change
our-
back?
Well, I don't know. I don't think they'll
So you wanna-
evaluate it until January. So let's just, I think we should just stick with the
I actually prefer the Tuesday.
Tuesdays.
Yeah,
Okay. I
it's
mean, it
working
doesn't
well
really
for me.
Yeah.
matter
I'm
to
liking
me.
it too.
I feel like most kids' sports things are on Thursday nights.
Except that
so, yeah.
I go to the Tuesday meeting and then I work on what I think is Friday and then I think I got a weekend coming and it turns out it's
Hey, me
only
too.
Thursday.
I should take my half day on Friday on Wednesday. All right. Let's move on to our,
I make a motion that we approve
We're
the minutes of the
Okay.
meeting of
Second?
the 2nd, October 2nd.
Do I have a second on that?
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
thank
you, Thank you, great
we
job.
didn't say what the dates were for the January, but it's,
Is it the 8th and the 20th?
it should be the 1st and the 3rd.
What do you want? 8th and the,
I thought I brought my planner.
Which one
up.
is planning on the 1st and the 3rd, so we're the 2nd and the 4th?
No, we're the 1st and the 3rd.
Okay, so January 1st, we don't have that meeting that day.
no.
Oh,
So the next one would be the 15th. We could do the 15th and the 29th.
in that, well, let's just, maybe we need to check with planning.
Yes.
Make sure that they don't have, is there 5 weeks? I don't have the calendar up here.
I don't think if we do the 15th, we should just go to February and do
Right.
that first week in February.
Okay.
So
would agree.
only have one meeting in January?
Yeah. If we have an early one in February.
We have 2 in December. Last year when we did 1 in December, so we'll have 2 in December.
But we might not have enough business for the second one in December.
Oh, that's true. Well, we don't have any new filings.
Well, let's hold off on deciding then.
The only reason I wanted to know, but I can improvise, is the scavenger hunt. Last year you guys pulled the drawing in January, so on the flyer I just wanted to put our January date, but I can just say at our January meeting. if that's okay.
Yes.
What do you
Yeah.
think?
Which will be
That's- Yeah.
posted.
Or you can
Good,
provide them.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
A few years ago, we didn't have it until February, even though all the posters said January. It was really not good.
Okay, I can do that.
Anything
Oh,
else?
last year?
3 years ago.
All right, sorry, what was decided, the 15th?
Well,
We're gonna wait?
we're gonna wait.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. All right. The other meeting minutes, should we just keep continuing with those?
So,
We want to continue the 16th date?
I'd like to make a motion.
I haven't finished reading them
Yeah.
or making comments relative to them yet.
I did read them and I guess I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Oh, okay.
Any
That was
discussion?
easy.
All in favor?
Can I vote on that since I watched the movie and?
Yeah,
Yes.
all right.
I mean, the whole movie?
Oh, you need to do
I-
the Mullen?
Put me to sleep.
Yeah, I have the Mullen right here for you too.
Okay.
I did have one comment
Yes, I
on,
did.
that I sent to Ashley. So in the working sessions, minutes, there's, I don't know, 5 or 6 references to we. So we decided, we, whatever.
That's a good
It
catch.
just seemed awkward to me, to say that in the minutes, so I thought it would be better to say the commission decided.
Yeah,
It
and
was,
rather
or
than
it
go with the
was.
whole "the commission," why don't we call ourselves SCC or something?
Yeah,
SCC, that way you can just, it makes it easy for you.
Yeah.
Just replace we with that.
Yeah.
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 Provided
I did see
we
that.
write Sturbridge Conservation Commission, then print, like in quotations, put like SEC, and then you can, it's in all my letters, so.
Okay.
You have to.
I know.
All right,
We're laughing at you, though.
okay.
So I make a motion that we approve the minutes, with that one change.
I'll second it. All in favor?
And thank you, Ashley, for all that work, that's great.
It was boring, but we read it.
This is a final draft.
Is that
Of
what we
your
have on our
regulations.
machine now?
What?
Do we have, did you send us a copy of that?
I did not send you a final
No.
draft, but at our last meeting, I showed you the last revisions.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everything else, you've approved those revisions. That was the last revisions that needed approval, minus one thing. So we talked about the filing fees.
Yeah,
In the discussion about the $50 certificate
right.
compliance. So I am gonna request that at this time, we do not add the $50 fee for the certificate of compliance, because one, it adds another process to get approval for it, which isn't a big thing, but second, because I don't think we have justification for that amount of a fee with what our current fees are. So I think we really should have reevaluated all the fees at that time, because $50 fee, it's more than a RDA, and it's also the same as a notice of intent. So if I had to go to the, which I would have to go to the Board of Selectmen and ask to change our filing fees, we'd only be adding that. And I think that they would probably ask, well, why that much when your filing fee is this? I do think that it's justified to have a filing fee for that. And I do think that based off of what other towns are doing, I think that the filing fees could be adjusted, but that's not now. I know you said last meeting you didn't want to do that. So I guess I would just ask that you make a decision that we include or don't include a filing fee for the certificate of compliance request at this time. Up to you.
I followed with interest that whole argument, so I think we should drop the fee
For the time being.
for the time being.
Yep. I do too. I want to
agree.
get this thing done.
Yep.
Okay, so I did take that
All in favor?
out.
On in the first place.
Um,
I don't think we should have put it on in the first place.
Oh, my God. Okay.
So
we're all
that
set.
wasn't
was
a
part of the
change
argument.
to the original document, that was a change to your revised document, so
Yeah.
it wasn't there originally. So this document with that approval is a final version of what you've worked on.
Wow.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
Do we have a
I spent a lot of
party or
time today
something?
going through it, which I didn't think I needed to,
Yeah, we're
but there was,
getting out at 9.
it's good. I had to change the table of contents and do
So-
things like that, so that's all been updated too.
So how do we get a copy of this?
Well, I'm gonna give you one. Well, I don't have a hard copy today for you.
Okay. So that, get us each, get
Yeah.
each person a signed hard copy with your signature up in the corner, so that they know that this is the one that
Okay,
that they don't
Okay.
confuse it with
But-
all the other 30 they have.
Right.
throw everything else out. So,
Really the
so what
one.
I am proposing to do and what we have started the process of doing is, at one of our last meetings, we discussed setting the date of November 28th for the separate public hearing in Veterans Hall for this.
Yep.
I drafted a memo, which I would like to send to the Board of Selectmen saying that we finalized our review. I just did it today, so you haven't reviewed it, but I
Yeah.
can pass it down, you can read it. I'd like to send them the memo, just outlining the changes, what we've done. I mean, outlining that we have a public hearing scheduled. I can pull it up if it's easier. That we, after that we discussed all the questions and comments they had. I'm also, because I know they're gonna ask, I think, just, I was in my letter gonna give them a copy of the minutes that reflect the discussion, because Ian went through, I don't remember these ones from
Yeah,
February
yeah,
22nd.
yeah.
They're really detailed, and this answers their questions, that their
Right.
questions were
Yeah.
answered and what we
Do you want to give
did.
that to him, or do you want to hold that in abeyance?
I was gonna give it to them, but
What do you guys think? I wouldn't give it to them. It's just something for them to read and ask questions out of.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think it's
that's fine.
great, and I think we just hold on to it if they ask.
They
for
want it,
then
we
we
give
give
Okay.
them.
You know what
Yeah.
Pandora's box is?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
What would, have you recommended a time on that, November 28th hearing?
6 o'clock.
All right.
So we are going to advertise for 2 weeks in advance
Okay,
of the public hearing. I think that's more than what is needed. It's just a week.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do a little extra. We'll have it available on our conservation page on the website. A meeting agenda will be posted on our website and at the town clerk's office. Yeah.
great.
All right, so do you just want to modify this then? I was gonna say at our meeting, we reviewed their comments and questions.
Yeah, no, that's true. You don't have to take that
During-
out. What? Why are you taking that out?
I just said I've attached a
Oh,
copy.
okay, yeah.
During this discussion, additional questions were raised which required further review,
Yeah.
further advisement by town council. The sections that were determined to require further clarification included sections 4.16 and section 6.1. Since that meeting, we've requested additional town council review and consultation and have made final revisions to these sections based on that consultation. Please see attached red line draft for these revisions, but.
Great.
All right. Please find attached a copy of the final draft of the regulation revisions. A final draft will be made available at the Conservation Department and on the town's website.
Great.
Okay? And if they need to see things, then we can just, I'll probably have to go to a meeting,
Yeah.
or we can go to a meeting. And
We can have
talk
them with
about
us.
that. Yep, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're okay with me issuing this memo
Yeah.
to them that we're moving forward?
I think
Okay.
that's a good idea.
Fantastic.
And we
yeah.
will we will print a copy for each and one of you. We'll do it double-sided. We can print it here,
Yes.
because this is a final draft. So this is,
Okay,
That's it.
yep.
fantastic.
All right.
Stephen, you're on.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
I'm not done yet, sorry.
Oh,
Sorry,
I removed my motion. though.
sorry.
You didn't have a second anyway.
I was gonna second it.
So I just had a couple things that recently came up that I didn't have on the agenda because they recently came up. So we had gone out actually and did a site visit looking at the 96, 98 Gliding Lane.
Yeah.
We had a complaint about that. We went out there. I've gotten some additional information since then. Buddy Soper came in. This is the site where the existing pipe was underneath Gliding Lane and the septic went in. He said that when they put the septic in, that they added the catch basin there. I mean, there was like the fill and there was concern with the soil, so they added the catch basin. I said, okay, that's what the homeowners were saying too, so it's consistent with that. He said the pipe was there. And then actually Mark Farrell came in today, so I actually asked him, as he did the design for that, and he lives over there, and he did confirm too, that that pipe was existing. It was there when he did his work, and he kind of reiterated the same thing, that I think that when the septic went in, they added the catch basin because the fill was in that
Because
area.
it filled the area.
Yes.
So do you have a year?
Well, the project was permitted in,
Oh, the septic, the new septic system went in, what, 2 years ago?
no, a little bit longer than that.
Longer than that.
Yeah, they had a garage that went in more recently. The garage
Oh,
went
it's
in
the
more
garage that-
recently.
yeah, okay, yeah.
The public hearing was in 2007 for the septic system.
flies.
So that's kind of consistent with
That's 2
when
years
the
ago.
person who made the complaint
Yeah.
said that he said this
That's right.
pipe, first he said the pipe was replaced illegally, and then he said there was a stream there. I mean, I
Right.
think there was a stream there historically, but many, many years ago, I think before these people owned it, so.
But the second phone call that I got talks more specifically about 2007, or that time frame.
Okay, and that's
So
when
you-
the septic.
So
went
you're
in.
gonna ask them to file for the catch basin, right?
I can, yes. Oh, that's what I'm
I would
asking.
like them to do. I would like to have that homeowner who owns the land file for the catch basin. that they
Right,
put in
Because
without filing.
the septic's on 98, the catch basin and the pipe are on 96.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right,
And-
so that's what we'll do with that.
Okay, is that a RDA or is
Yeah.
that
That's fine.
No.
a notice of intent? It's, hold on, let me,
What
What
just
would
wanna
that
be clear.
David, because it's already done?
yeah, and we
After the
are,
fact NOI.
I'm trying to look at where the buffer, well, it might be out of 100 feet, so.
It isn't,
Redline.
because this is, it's a,
It was a stream.
it's a catch basin to a stream.
Oh, right, so there's, right, where the
Water
pipe
coming.
outlets there is, so
Yeah.
it's, okay, I wasn't thinking about that, I was
Yeah.
thinking about this and that, which is further away, so.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So after the fact NOI.
Anyway,
For the installation of the catch basin.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
and then also the 2 orders of conditions for 98 cladding for the garage and the septic, they haven't closed out their permit, so I'm gonna ask them to do requests for certificates of compliance for those. But I think that this catch basin, even though it
Separate-
happened
separate-
then, it's
different
separate,
people.
separate property,
separate people.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
That's it?
That's it?
Nope,
Nope.
sorry.
Look, these guys are chomping at the bit.
I wanna be done with these, so when I go away, I'm not thinking about
Right.
lingering things. I just wanted to give you a quick update, 272 Big Alum. They're still working with DEP. I followed up with them a little while ago, just checking in. Glenn Kravosky emailed me some correspondence he had to send to DEP about the dock. So my understanding is they're still working out the dock situation. Not sure what the outcome will be on that. I have not reached out to my contact at DEP Waterways to ask what the status is there. But I think we kind of left it that they would get that resolved.
Can you give us an explanation about, a year ago, we were told that they applied for a permit, that never happened. A month ago, it happened, and now
Yep.
they're in conversations with DEP.
Yep.
About what? You send in an application.
Right.
It's either approved or disapproved.
So in 2017, they submitted an application. DEP asked for additional information. At the same time, they went to the Board of Selectmen. The engineer went to the Board of Selectmen thinking he had to get approval from them as the harbor masters. They gave approval even though it's a permanent structure. From my understanding, I didn't go back and look at the meeting minutes, but that's what happened, and thought that, yep, we're all set. He did that for them. The homeowner did their own DEP filing, so they thought, oh, we're all set. We don't need to give DEP anything else. And then they just submitted a new application this year when this
Okay.
all came up. So that's that, still kind of ongoing. I figured I'd follow up kind of in writing, make sure they're, keeping the site stabilized and that they, are working on a plan to come back soon.
Yep.
The Lad Road, we received additional information on 27 Lad Road recently, photos of potential work out there, which I thought was probably, looked like more routine grading of the driveway, as I had never seen it before. By the time we got the complaint,
This is the stuff.
I went out there,
Yeah.
saw it, some time had lapsed, but I did pull out, there was an emergency certification for that culvert replacement there in 2005. So I
Yeah.
did pull out the
Yeah.
file, and there's some photos in there. So you can kind of see, there's a lot of vegetation grown in there. But then this is the area looking up.
Yeah.
So I just thought that
Yeah,
it'd be
we walked
useful
on that
to
the other
see
night.
these,
Yeah, you make a comparison between those pictures, and you can see the widening.
Yeah.
well, this one
Looks like they even rolled it. But they had a roller.
well, this is 2005.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where the culvert is right here. So
Yeah.
you can kind of see the edges, but I don't know if that was just because they did that culvert work right there. So that,
Is that a coyote?
yeah,
Huh?
that's a dog,
It's a dog? Okay.
I think. But I just wanted to share that older information
Okay.
with you.
And what do you conclude from looking at those two pieces
Well,
of information?
one of the photos looks like the vegetation is growing in a lot, and that's facing Lad Road from like the culvert.
Yep.
But then there's another photo of that area that looks different. So, but then as you look up the road, you can kind of see it's wide in some areas. On the right-hand side where the telephone pole is, it definitely looks a little bit wider there right now, like you would
Yeah.
actually behind the telephone pole. But the left-hand side, you can see an area that kind of bumps out, and that's where, remember, that sediment was coming down? Was it always historically like that?
Yeah, it looks like you marked where the telephone pole is here. Is that?
Oh, I didn't mark that. That
Yeah.
was
Okay.
probably someone else.
That was so marked by the
Where are we headed
previous
with
owners.
this?
Ah,
Where are we headed with all this?
Well, another letter was gonna go out,
Yeah.
and I started to draft that letter. And then I looked at these photos, so I thought that I'd bring it to the commission, to look at the photos.
Well, what would the harm in a letter be?
Well, I don't think there'd be harm, but what's the,
What's the good?
what's
Well, the good is that it makes them aware of the fact that we're watching them.
Right, what's the context of the letter? Do we want them to come into our next meeting because we think there's a violation? Do we want them to come in because we wanna make sure they're not gonna be doing this future? We wanna have a discussion about work out there, the building of anything, jurisdictional resource areas up the road.
Right.
And just have a conversation, but I just don't know how you want me, you are in violation, or you, I was kind of struggling with how to write this letter, I guess, and looking for some feedback.
well, there were no permits requested, no, I mean, clearly they're within our jurisdiction, so, and there was work done, I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say that, new information came in since I last originally went out there, and what appeared to be, and I wrote that in my letter, appeared.
Let's do that then. Let's go with just what, the combination of what the
Okay,
two you just
am I
said.
requesting that they come to our next
Yeah.
meeting to just have a conversation
Yeah, to have a
about,
conversation about not working. Yeah.
okay,
Have Moose come, or whatever his name was,
conversation
It's
about
loose.
the big guy.
work within jurisdictional,
Right.
yeah,
yeah.
okay. All right,
And the part you said about more information. Okay,
okay, keep that.
yeah.
Okay.
What's next?
That's it.
Whoa.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?